Hi, good afternoon, everybody who's starting to join us. Thank you for being with us on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot of information to cover, so hold on to your hats. Good afternoon, Robert. Hi. So I see a lot of familiar names that are starting to pop in. I see a couple new names and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Robin, Lisa. Hi, Elmer. Yes, Brittany, I could see, actually, I see you. I see everybody's name who's on here. I see everybody that's joining us. I can't actually see your faces. This is a Zoom. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom meeting. So just by default, everybody's cameras are off and you are all muted by default as well. So if you do have, feel free to use the comment. Oh, that's nice. Good afternoon, Eve, Kirsten. Hi, Linda. I'm fine, and how are you? So we have a lot of people hopping on right now. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes, give a few more people to hop on. I only have about, let me see. Linda, you've raised your hand. I've unmuted you. You could unmute yourself to speak. Oh, and you lowered your hand. Okay. I guess you were just saying hi and hello. Hi, hi, hi. Yeah, I'm just waiting for a couple more people to hop on here before we get started. This course is really a great course. It really has a lot of information in regards to preparing your clients, whether they be the buyer or the seller. There's a lot of, start out giving you a lot of information that goes on like behind the scenes as far as home inspection firms and stuff like that, questions you need to ask of your home inspectors. And then we really get into the meat of it a little later into the course in regards to like preparing your clients, whether they're the seller or the buyer. There's really a lot of great information on here. But we will be getting started shortly. I'm just waiting for a few more people to hop on, so I don't want to miss anybody. Just going to give it another minute or so. But as I was saying, yeah, this course is absolutely fabulous. What time is class going to? Lisa, this is 3 credits. So this goes until 3 p.m. So don't worry, it goes by really, really fast. I mean, there's a ton of information, and don't worry, I will send everybody a copy of this after the course is completed. Everybody will receive an email from me, and it'll have all my contact information in there. So if you don't get your certificate within 48 hours, you could get in touch with me. I'll have some upcoming classes on there, a link for our full April calendar, as well as any additional information that I need to send you. But yeah, but it'll go by really, really quick. There is a lot of information. We'll take a couple of breaks so that you have a chance to powder your nose. We have some polling questions in there. I like to compare them to that, that little, are you still watching box that you get on your TV when you're binge watching on Netflix. So the polling questions are to make sure that you're still awake and still with us for Monday's new home class. All right, I'll make a note of that and I'll go in there and get it over to you. Oh, okay. I don't know why sometimes those things happen, but it should be in there and I'll just send it over to you. I'll email it to you, Darren. Just writing a note to myself. Keeper, animal, newer homes. Okay, so What time is it? All right, so we gave it enough time. So I do see a lot of agents who are returning again for their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth course with us. And thank you so much for coming back to us. And I also see a lot of new agents on here too. Welcome. I always say, welcome to the cool kid table in the lunchroom because now you're part of the pack. So I just want to give, for the newbies who are on here, I want to give you a little information on who we are and why we do these courses for you. We are accredited, we are approved in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware to provide these CE courses to you. Oh, that's okay. That's okay, Lisa. You're back. That's all that counts. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. Um, and as of right now, while we're going through our 2 weeks of shutdown, we're going to shut it down for 2 weeks. So we're doing that 2 weeks of shutdown. We've been doing them virtually, and we're approved in New Jersey and Pennsylvania to provide these to you virtually. So we're really happy about that, but we are kind of chomping at the bit. Can't wait to get back on the road and start visiting agencies and doing these for teams again. It's going to be a lot of fun when we get back out there and get to see you guys face to face, hang out with you, have a few good laughs and bring you a lot of really great courses. So we are Real Estate Inspections. We're Pete and Patty. Real Estate Inspections is the largest home inspection firm in the region. We cover all of Eastern Pennsylvania, Central and Southern New Jersey, Northeastern Maryland, and most of Delaware as well. Not only were we the largest, we're also the highest rated. We're so proud of those over 1,000 five-star reviews across all forms of social media. We're on Google's list, Angie's List, Google, Home Advisor, Facebook, Thumbtack. If you haven't had a chance to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, you should. You would see like so many of those reviews, and they're driven by our exceptional customer service and our amazing inspectors, that fabulous support team that's behind those inspectors, so the inspectors can focus on just you and your client. And it's also driven by the fact that we're so convenient. We're just one-stop shop, and we do everything. We do commercial, residential, radon, termite. We do new construction progress inspections. We say progress because we come in different phases, such as the foundation, the pre-drywall, as well as the final walkthrough. We are also EPA lead safe certified inspectors, so we can perform those EPA lead safe inspections. For those of you who have deals in the city of Philadelphia, if you're into like property management and such, you know that we will be able to do them for you in compliance with that new law that became effective in Philadelphia in October of 2020. We also do water quality testing. We do air quality testing. Air quality testing for, everybody say it with me, a biological substance consistent with mold. Everybody who took the mold class knows that term now. If you have not taken the class mold, what you need to know about mold, you need to take the class because it does tell you everything you need to know about mold. And then, of course, we do our stucco inspections. We perform more stucco inspections than anyone. Pete himself, who's going to be presenting, he's performed thousands of stuccos, and he's developed a very unique two-step process to his stucco inspections, where we come in and do a level 1, which is a non-invasive. We do a visual, and we rely on technology such as interior thermal imaging and moisture scanning. And then only if it's necessary, then we'll escalate to the level 2, the part that everybody's afraid of, and no need to be afraid. Stucco is actually an excellent cladding system. If you haven't registered for our stucco course, you really should, so that you could see why. If you have clients that say, don't even show me a stucco house, tell them, pish, 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 pish. No, 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 no. It's fine. It's fine. Stucco is an excellent cladding system. And then, of course, we have our sewer line video inspections. As you know, in Pennsylvania, a lot of townships and boroughs now require a sewer lateral video inspection as part of the transaction. And because of that sewer line video inspection, we decided to make a couple of packages for you, because we know a lot of agents like to call and schedule the inspection for their clients. This way you make sure everything's absolutely perfect, nothing's missing. You don't want to be there, the day before everything's going to go down and be like, hey, where's the radon? So with you in mind, we want to make that phone call quicker and easier. So we have our essentials, which is your typical home radon termite, but we also have an intrusion detection package, and that includes that solar lateral video inspection. For those of you that need that to get to the table, it also includes a combustible gas leak detection inspection, as well as interior thermal imaging. It's interior thermal imaging. It's not X-ray vision. It's not voodoo magic, but the anomalies that appear show us temperature differentials. And that gives us a lot of information on what's going on as far as moisture intrusions or air leaks and stuff like that. It's really a fabulous tool as far as inspections go, and really a good inspection to have. And then we also took it one step further, and we have our maximum awareness package. We call that one what's lurking behind the walls. That includes everything in the intrusion detection package, but it also has that air quality testing for a biological substance consistent with mold. They're going to write that on my tombstone. Each just going to have a picture of a mold spore, but I'm going to have the phrase. um, Anyway, so why do we do all these things? We did the bundles for you. We try to do we do as much as we possibly can for you, the agents. We love you guys, and we think you're grossly underpaid for the amount of work and devotion that you put in, the hours, the days, evenings, weekends, holidays. You're constantly on the go with the cell phone and everything else. So we also have our agent appreciation program. We used to do this monthly, and we keep changing, and now it's weekly. The day Pete calls me and says, hey, Patty, I want to do this daily. That's it. I quit. I'm kidding. I would love it. But right now we do it daily. It really is my favorite part of my job. I love making that phone call. So if a client calls and schedules an inspection and mentions that we happen to be on your list of providers, then we enter your name for the weekly drawing. We put all the names in a hat, and once a week I pull a name out of the hat. And then that lucky winner gets to pick any of these really, really cool devices. I'm not a techie person, but these things are amazing. The agent who won for last week picked the dual dash cam. I was teasing him about that when I was like, you must be a really good driver. Because I would never want video evidence of anything I'm doing on the highway. But we had an agent the week before who picked Apple AirPods, and she called me on the phone to say to me, I'm talking to you with my AirPods in. So she loves them because now she's completely hands-free. So it's really a lot of fun. And just to make it even more fun, or as my 4-year-old grandson would say, funner, we have an end of year grand prize drawing. All the names that I've gathered throughout the whole year, I put them in one big hat, and at the end of the year, we have this big drawing. We did back in January, we did it live on Facebook, and we were live on one of the courses, and it's for the 75-inch HD smart TV. This TV is amazing. I'm old, so I remember getting up to turn the knob to change the channel to 3610 or UHF, and that was it. But now you could just sit on your sofa and yell, "Hey Alexa," you know, put on Tiger King. So, and the TV just does everything for you except popcorn on movie night. So it's a lot of fun. Anyway, I keep mentioning this guy, Pete. So who's Pete? Pete is the owner of our firm. He's one of our founding fathers. He's our chief inspector. Not only does he love educating you, he loves educating all of us on the real estate inspections team, the support staff behind the scenes. He's always keeping us up to date on everything. And then, of course, he's always out there with the inspectors. He's constantly in touch with them. He goes out in the field with them, follows them, shadows them, works side by side with them to make sure that they have the latest, the greatest, the newest technology, knowledge, everything. So a lot of people after these courses, they call up and say, I need an inspection. I want Pete. Trust me, if you don't get Pete, you absolutely get someone who inspects like Pete, thinks like Pete, analyzes like Pete, and reports like Pete. So I'm going to hop out. I'm going to after that big build up, I want you to actually meet Pete. I want you to have a lot of fun. Like I said, yes, it is a long course, but it's going to go by in the blink of an eye, I promise. I'll come back on and give you a little bit more information at the end if we have time, and have a good time. Ask a ton of questions. You have a leader in the industry at your beck and call for the next 3 hours. Use him and abuse him, pick his brain, and have a good time. Have fun, Pete.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, everybody, for being here this beautiful spring afternoon. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping here. This is a Zoom webinar. So if you have frequently become familiar with Zoom meetings, as many of us have, these Zoom webinars are a little bit different. Zoom set these up so the content on the screen is the focus, not necessarily the interaction between us. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to interact with you guys. We absolutely want interaction. We love interaction. Love it when you guys ask questions. So please do, as you have been, you've been using the chat box. Feel free to use the Q&A box as well. Click on either one of those. Type your questions in there, your comments, your thoughts, your observations. Tell me I'm being a ding dong, whatever. We love it when you guys interact with us because we feel like you're getting the most out of the class. So please, if you have any questions at all, pop them in there, and I'll actually respond to them right in the flow of the class. So we'll definitely do that. Um, if you guys have, let's say you have a question that's going to take a little bit, I don't feel like typing this in, it's going to take too much. I need to unpack this for you. If I'm going to ask this question, go ahead and raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I'm going to assume that you want me to enable you to talk, just like Charlita just did. And Eve, I see that you've done that as well. So if you guys raise your hand, I'm going to assume that you have a question, and I'm going to enable you to speak. And if I do enable you to speak, you just want to make sure that you go into your audio settings and make sure before you start talking, you want to unmute yourself. And so, Charlita, you have a question, feel free. I've enabled you to speak. You just got to unmute yourself if you have a question, Charlita. Or if you're just testing it out, just let me know that as well. But that's how it works, guys. If you raise your hand, I'm going to stop right in the flow of the class. I'm going to assume that you want me to, you want to talk. So we'll certainly happy to do that as often as necessary. So this class, actually, we're talking about managing the home inspection. So there's actually a lot to that. This can go in a lot of different directions. We're going to follow through the flow of the course. But if you guys have questions, you want to go off topic, that's perfectly fine. We're happy to do that. You can ask any questions about anything in the flow of the class, and we'll relate it into the class, but feel free to ask any questions you have. So managing the home inspection, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so, it's a pretty significant thing. Some people, I think newer agents sometimes think they're so focused on going through all the steps they need to go through that they sometimes maybe don't even have a process or protocol to actually engage the clients in terms of preparing them for the home inspection. And that's going to be a big part of what we talk about today. Managing the home inspection process. You don't want to, a lot of the things that we talk about in our classes are about how you can be and incorporate processes and protocols, systems, disciplines in the work that you do in order to, proactively is the word I'm looking for, is that to proactively engage with your clients to set their expectations, bring their expectations in alignment with what's actually going to happen, bring their expectations in alignment with reality. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So managing the home inspection. What we're going to look at today, we're actually going to, we're going to go start at the beginning. We're going to define what a home inspection is. I can tell you, as the person that deals in our business anyway, we do thousands of inspections a year. When there's questions, a lot of times they end up on my desk. If there's, misperceptions, whatever, even if there's problems, they're going to end up on my desk. I'm the guy who deals with it. So a lot of times it relates back to people don't even have a good understanding of what a home inspection is, or they've come up with their own idea of what a home inspection is, and it's nothing close to what in reality a home inspection is. So we're going to define what a home inspection is and also talk about what a home inspection is not. We're going to talk about how we equip the buyers for the home inspection. Obviously the buyers are the one moving forward. The buyers are the one who are purchasing a home inspection. They want to see what what do they want? Well, they want transparency. They want visibility. They want clarity in terms of, the largest investment they're ever probably going to make in their life. They want to get some information about it. And they want to learn what is going to be necessary in order for me to move forward in this transaction and ultimately to move in this house, and what's required to own and maintain this house at a high level. That's what a home inspection can do for them. And so, we're going to talk about how we equip that buyer for the home inspection. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time, believe it or not, talking about how to advise the seller to prepare for a home inspection. You say, well, what are you talking about? All a seller needs to do is get the heck out of the way, right? Well, no, we're actually going to go into quite a bit of detail. We're going to talk about the benefits that a home inspection, even though a home inspection being purchased by the buyer, that can be a tremendous benefit to the seller. And if you're scratching your head, don't worry, we're going to talk about that. We're going to answer those questions. We're going to talk about how the seller should prepare for a home inspection. Have you ever talked to your sellers? If you're on the listing side, a lot of the time, have you ever talked to your sellers about preparation that they can do for a home inspection? We're going to talk about whether or not the seller should be present. We're going to talk about things an inspector might ask for, and then we'll do a review at the end. So it's kind of the breakdown. That's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's jump right into it. What is a home inspection? Well, here's the definition, the dictionary definition. It's a home inspection is a limited visual examination of the physical structures and systems of a home. I left out these parenthetical statements, but they're really, really critical because they define the home inspection is a limited inspection. That means it's not technically exhaustive. Technically exhaustive inspections, and this is what people think, and this is what I'm talking about the misperception about what a home inspection is. Some people think that if they get a home inspection, they should move into their house and basically there should be nothing wrong, that there shouldn't be any surprises, there shouldn't be anything pop up that wasn't found during the home inspection. I can tell you right now, that is not realistic. Maybe you as an agent, maybe you're a newer agent, think that that's what a home inspection, it should guarantee for the client. That's not at all the truth. That's not reality. And we don't want people to be misled or deceived. A home inspection is a limited inspection. We're going to unpack that for you. Not technically exhaustive means we're in there for, relatively speaking, a very, very short amount of time and looking at a whole lot of things in a short amount of time. We'll unpack that in just a minute. A home inspection is also a visual inspection. That means it's non-invasive. Non-invasive. The bottom line is if we can't see it, we can't report on it. And there's a lot of things that we don't have visibility into, whether or not there's finishes over them, or whether or not the buyer lives in the house. The seller lives in the house and the house is cluttered. There's all kinds of stuff everywhere, personal effects all over the place. We can't see it, we can't report on it, and therefore it is actually excluded from the scope of the inspection. And so really, really important that you guys understand that, so that again, proactively, you can make sure that your clients, the buyer, understands that. So what does a home inspection include? We'll talk a little about what it doesn't include. We kind of talked about the fact that it's limited, it's only visual. So that means there's a lot of things excluded. So what does it include? Well, it actually includes a whole ton of things. And this isn't even close to being a comprehensive list. So we're not going to go through all these things in detail, but the idea, the takeaway on this slide is there's, 500 to 600, quite often even more than 600 different systems or components that we're looking at, that we're viewing. Our eyes are going across, we're forming opinions about, we're looking at it in conjunction with systems as they integrate together. It's just systematic integration of these things. We're doing all of that, looking at all of these things, just not without going into detail, but a lot of structural elements. We spend a lot of time outside. We spend a lot of time in the basement, and then there's not a lot of structural things we can see, maybe the attic, but besides that, the rest of the house on the interior, there's not structural things we can see. Everything's covered over with walls, but we can see evidence of things like bowing walls, sagging, different things like that. We're looking at all of that stuff. We're going through a house trying to form an opinion on all that stuff that we can see. Safety features, grounds, leaks, different things like that. Proper drainage, the roof, critical flashing details, exterior surfaces, all this kind of stuff. It's extensive. It really, really is extensive. We're going through the process right now of redoing our report writing system. And so we've actually looked around, figured out which system are we going to purchase and whatnot. And we didn't like any of them. None of them really did what we wanted to do. So I've engaged software developers, and for the past 4, 5, 6 months, we've been developing our own report writing software. And I can tell you, That's just highlighted for me how much stuff, it's just amazing how much stuff we actually look at in a relatively short amount of time. We're talking about a short amount of time. What am I talking about? Well, we're talking about, you know, 2 to 3 hours is probably your average time that we're out there. We're not being paid to come out and from an engineering perspective, reverse engineer everything to see if everything was done right. That would be a technically exhaustive inspection. That would probably not take 2, 3 hours, not take 2, 3 days. It wouldn't even take 2, 3 weeks. It would probably take even more than that to spend that amount of time reverse engineering everything to find everything out about the house. It would take an extremely long amount of time. So the idea is that's not what a home inspection is. A home inspection is a high level overview from 30,000 feet, looking at a whole lot of things, trying to form as many opinions as we can in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, typical home inspection, we're getting, roughly $350, $400 to do your typical home inspection. It's we're not being paid to be there for, for all day long, even not even, certainly not days or weeks. So that's what we're trying to get the drive that point home, is that, wow, is there a lot of different things we're looking at in a very, very condensed time frame. And it helps if you guys kind of set that plate for the clients, because again, I can tell you, because I get, conversations all the time with people, buyers. They think that, well, I've moved into my house and we found out that we had a clogged pipe in the wall. Well, that's not something we can see during a home inspection, but they seem to be under the perception. Their expectation was that when they moved in the house, there wasn't going to be anything wrong. That's not how it is. Think of your family doctor. You go to your doctor. Just because you go to your doctor and he gives you physical, does that mean you're never going to have anything wrong with you again? No, that's not reality. That's not, where the thought process should be. But the same thing applies to a home inspector. A home inspector is a lot like you going and get a physical. I go every year and I get a physical. My doctor goes, he pushes and prods and tells me to stick my tongue out and he looks at my ears and up my nose and asks me a bunch of questions. And so he's, kind of doing a high level overview, right? My primary care physician. And sometimes, we'll talk about some things and they'll say, well, yeah, okay, you're getting old. This is breaking down. This is what you should probably do. And, other times he says, you know what, that's probably going to require a little bit deeper evaluation. So let me send you into a specialist. Well, that's basically what a home inspector does. I'm not saying we're doctors. We don't have that kind of training, but that's kind of what, in terms of a job description, your primary care physician is a lot like a home inspection. All right, the way they perform a physical. Something to really know, big takeaway here. People kind of rely on home inspectors to really be the, quote, experts. We're really not experts. I mean, we might have come from a field where we have a expertise in a specific field. I've got guys that are actually, I got guys that are structural engineers. I've got guys that were formerly HVAC tech. So Ruth, Ruth says, the doctor versus a specialist. That's a great everyday reference. So yeah, home inspectors are not specialists. Like I said, there's so many different things that we're looking at. There's just no way in the world we can be a specialist in every single one of those things. We might have, like I've got guys that they've spent 30 years as an HVAC tech. They know heating and air conditioning, refrigeration systems, inside out, backwards and forwards. But then when it comes to electrical, maybe, well, they don't know all there is to know. And then when it comes to structural elements, no, they're not experts. And so, what we're taught to be, just like your primary care physician, not a specialist, but a generalist. That by definition, home inspections are generalists. We are taught a broad, we have a pretty good depth of knowledge over a broad range of things. And so we're going to talk a little bit in terms of what kind of training we go through. And you're going to be really surprised to find out in some locations what's required and other locations what's not required. So, but that's the takeaway here from this slide. A home inspector is not a specialist. A home inspector is a generalist. And so, like we said, think in terms of your family doctor, your primary care physician. What's he called? Well, he is a general practitioner. Yesterday I had to go to Actually, a couple months ago, I had a flare up of diverticulitis. And so I had to go see a specialist. I had to go to a gastroenterologist. I can't even say it right, but that's what that guy specializes in. But I was talking to him and asking him some other questions about, some other things, and he didn't really have a clue. And that's fine because that isn't his area of expertise. So some people are general practitioners, some are specialists, and so just like your doctor needs to figure basic things out and then send you along your way to a specialist, or maybe prescribe some basic things. That's think of that in terms of your home inspector. And so if you have that analogy, you can share that with your clients because really, and why am I doing? I'm not doing this because I want you guys to make my job easier. That's not what this is about. I am all about everything our business is about. That's the same thing you guys are about, and that is creating an exceptional user experience. When people call you up and say, "Hey, can you help me find a home?" and you say yes, and they engage with you, sign a contract, that it's begun. That their user experience has begun. And so everything you do from that point forward, you want to make sure that you are providing an experience that is the highest level you can possibly provide them. Why? Well, because that's the right thing to do. And secondly, because you want them to think that they're getting value for the money that they're paying for your service. And then not only that, you want them to go out and tell other people. That's what it's about. You spend money on advertising as an agent, but there isn't anything as good as, somebody telling somebody, "Hey, I use this agent and you're nuts if you don't use them," because let me tell you, it was an incredible, incredible experience. They did right by me. And if you use anybody else, you are just, doing yourself a disservice. Nothing better than that kind of advertising, right? Well, the only way that's going to happen is if people have a fantastic experience. So now we're talking, we know what we want to do. We want to deliver a great experience, right? So let's talk about the framework for that, the time frame, if you will. What's our perspective? What is that frame of reference for the user experience? Well, it's from the time they pick up the phone, not till the time you get to the settlement table. No, 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 no. That might be, where you focus there. And, but that really isn't where you should focus. Your focus should be, hey, I want every aspect of this to be great all the way through and beyond. They're actually moving into the home. That's the frame of reference I'm talking about. Once they moved into that home and they're living there, they've moved in, they're comfortable, they're living there happily and safely. That is the frame of reference for the user experience that I'm referring to. And so when it comes to the home inspection is a pretty big integral part of the whole process. It's things where things might tend to go sideways. And why? We'll talk about that because things might be revealed that they didn't know, or people's expectations. They went out. What happened? That they were looking. They called you up, say, "Help me find a home." You're taking them all over the place, showing them all these different homes. And finally, they say, "This is it. This is the one. Let's put the offer in." They put the offer in, it gets accepted. They're like, "Yeah, this is great. This is awesome." And what do? They start going online. They start looking at all of the photos online, all the stage photos and how great this house looks and all the Photoshop stuff. And they start falling in love with this home. But the home that they're falling in love with might not in reality be the home that they're going to see during inspection day. They come out during inspection day and they might have spent 15, 20 minutes in that home before when they said, "Hey, let's put the offer in on this one." And then they come out on inspection day and they're spending 2 to 3 hours there and they're seeing things that they didn't see before. And you got Mr. Inspector out there who's pointing things out that they didn't see before, and some things might be revealed that they didn't have. Well, everything that you guys do needs to be to set that up, to set the plate for that, to make sure that their expectations are in alignment with reality. We'll talk about that in some detail more. So how do you direct your clients to, buyers? How do you direct them to a good home inspector? It's pretty important. you know, what do we want to do? Well, we want to avoid the bad home inspector. And they're out there, just like there are bad agents, there are bad doctors, good policemen, bad policemen, they're human beings. And so there's good ones and there's bad ones. That's just life. That's the reality of it. You see this guy here and he's super focused. I've had this inspector come on board and try to train with us, and they washed out of our program because here this guy is trying to re-engineer or reverse engineer this downspout system, trying to figure out if this splash block's pointed the right way. Meantime, he's got a leaking pipe behind him and the condensing unit on the air conditioning system's on fire. and his focus is in the wrong place. So this is not the inspector that you want to guide your clients to, right? So something to know, home inspection is not a commodity item. I talk to my sales, team all the time, that this, my client service reps, and they talk all the time about how people will call them up and all they care about is getting the best price they can possibly get. And that's really a mistake. If you just go out and you just think about it from your perspective, think about if somebody's looking to buy a house and all they wanted to do was get the cheapest commission price they could get, and they're just going to get whoever's going to give them the cheapest commission is going to get. Well, what do you think they're going to get? Are they going to get the best agent they can possibly get? I mean, I'm personally of the opinion, if I'm buying a house, I want the agent who's got the most experience, has seen it all, and is super, super focused on delivering a great user experience to me. I mean, I can't put a dollar value on that. To me, particularly if I'm talking about spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on something, I want somebody who's really going to be looking out for this guy right here, right? So when I call up and if I'm going to be looking for an agent, I'm not caring about that much about whether or not I'm getting, the cheapest commission rate I could possibly get. That shouldn't be the highest. Well, same thing with a home inspection. Home inspector, you're going to get all different levels of service. You're going to get the guy out there with a pickup truck who's just super focused on cranking out as many inspections as he can possibly do it, or you can get somebody who's put together a really functional operation that is really super super focused on customer service. It's what we're talking about here on this point. Same thing as applies to the knowledge base of the inspector. You can get somebody, and I'm not putting down a brand new inspector. I mean, we bring on inspectors, train them, and they're brand new inspectors. But it's about how much of a knowledge base they have, how much studying have they done, how much effort have they put into this to become a good inspector, and are they going to be extremely professional? Yeah, I mean, there's some people out there, some inspectors, for them it's a real ego trip. It's all about, they seem to think that because they're quote an inspector, that gave them some kind of authority or something like that. Well, I got news for them. We don't have any authority. I mean, we we get paid to provide an opinion, and that's it. And because we're getting paid to provide an opinion, because it's a real privilege to be able to go in to somebody else's house to provide the service that we provide for our clients, that's a real privilege. And so we have to do that with a level of humility and understanding that it's really a privilege to go out and serve our clients as we do. And so we've got to be extremely professional when we do that, not only because we want to project professionalism on ourselves, but it's also a reflection upon you. If we're somebody that's on your list of vendors and we go out because a client has an agent has recommended us to our client, what a privilege that is. And then we need to project ourselves realizing that we are a reflection on you as well. So this is what we're looking for. So these are the kinds of inspectors you want to steer your clients to. So I always tell agents to, hey, you guys can ask questions. If you're going to have anybody on your list of vendors, whether they're an inspector, a contractor, or whatever, I say vet them. I don't know if you ever heard of the term wadir. If you've ever seen My Cousin Vinny, the movie, what happened when it was towards the end of the movie and it looked like Vinny was going to lose the case, and he was trying to figure out how to break this case open and turn it around for him. And he's trying to figure it out, and his girlfriend, Melissa, name escapes me right now, but his girlfriend, so that's it, I'm done with you, I'm taking off. Well, he needed her to testify because he figured out that that she was going to be the key, the linchpin to turn this case around for him. So he goes, he drags her back in, she's mad at him, doesn't want to testify. But the prosecutor, Marissa Tomei, thank you, Patty, Marissa Tomei, on the stand, she won an Oscar for this thing. And she's on the stand and she's testifying that she is an expert in general automotive repair. Well, the prosecutor said, wait a minute, what, I'm supposed to believe that you're an expert, that you're qualified to testify and give an expert testimony about general automotive repair? And so he says, I'd like to wadir this witness. What he meant was, I wanted to vet this witness. I wanted to ask them questions to see if in fact they are qualified. That's what you guys should do. And by the way, she did an exceptional job, turned the case around, they won the case, and everything, that's everybody lived happily ever after. But I love that movie. Every time it's on, I can watch that movie. But you want to ask your inspector questions. Not only you, but you could even provide a list of questions for your clients to ask and to wadir their inspectors that they're going to hire. So it's a great thing to do. Again, it's going to make you give you a greater level of comfort asking these questions. If knowing this about them. Not only that, you can share what you've learned with your clients when you're recommending them. So, some questions asked. Number one, have they been professionally trained? And so this is actually a really important question. So I think most of I can, Patty, where is this mostly PA or a combination of PA and New Jersey, the agents in here? I'm not sure where most of you are from. PA. So you guys are PA. So it's something you may or may not know, and that is that home inspectors in the state of Pennsylvania, number one, are not required to be licensed. Number two, they are really not required to go on any kind of specific training. Basically, to be to be a home inspector in Pennsylvania, you need to be a member in good standing in a professional home inspector organization, typically ASHI or NACHI. You need to carry a minimum amount of insurance, which the state requires, professional liability insurance, and you're supposed to have performed something like 75 or 100 fee paid inspections under the supervision of another inspector. That being said, there's no regulating body out there to ensure that anybody's doing this. So in reality, there's no, like in the state of New Jersey, there's the New Jersey Home Inspection Advisory Commission. Same kind of thing in Delaware. Same thing in New Jersey. Same thing in New York. There's a regulating body that oversees and licenses home inspectors, ensures they do their continuing education. There's nothing like that in the state of Pennsylvania. Anybody can go out and get a pickup truck, whatever, get their tools, go out, get the insurance. They should get their insurance, and they can go out and say that they're a home inspector. There's no regulating body making sure that they do everything they should do or don't, or issuing license or nothing. So interesting to know. So asking them where they got their training, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania, pretty big deal. How much training do you have? What courses did you take? How much time did you spend going through your training? Give you an example. Just go across the river into the state of New Jersey. If you're going to be licensed in New Jersey, you have to go sit. You can't do it online. You've got to go and sit in approved classrooms. There are maybe a half a dozen, I don't even know if there's that many, schools in the state of New Jersey that are approved by the state of New Jersey to go and have in classroom training. You can't do it online. You've got to go and sit in the classroom, specified amount of hours, going through a very, very specific curriculum, a minimum of 140 hours. And then usually there's other, there's homework that goes on top of that, stuff that you are doing online. Then you've got to go out and you've got to have supervised inspections until you're brought up and signed off on having a level of proficiency doing inspections. And then you've got to be able to pass the National Home Inspector exam, which most people don't pass the first time out. That's not that easy to pass that particular exam. And so you got to go through all of that on top of having your licensing and whatnot before you can get and become a licensed home inspector in the state of New Jersey. Delaware pretty much has the exact same criteria. The only difference is you can take online courses there. Maryland, very, very similar. State of New York is almost identical to New Jersey. So you compare that to PA, wow, that's pretty significant difference. So knowing what kind of training they've had, where they've got their training, and how they've gone about acquiring that is a pretty big deal. Great question to ask. You're going to find out a lot about your inspector just from that. Asking them how much experience do they have? How long have they been doing inspections? Is this and that's not to say that somebody who's a new inspector, you should immediately discard. I'm just saying that you're asking them, you're finding out, you're getting an idea. Have they gone out on a bunch of training inspections? Have they, or literally, is this the third inspection they've ever been on? How many years have they been doing this? How many inspections do you have under your belt? Is this property inspection business your only business? Or now the code of ethics that we all supposedly subscribe to say that if we inspect a home, we can't do any work on that home as a contractor in any way, shape, or form. We're not allowed to do any work on that home to get paid to do any work for a period of 1 year after that. So what's the idea behind that law, that rule, which by the way is a law in the state of Pennsylvania? There are laws in the state of Pennsylvania. It's just that nobody's regulating it. Nobody's overseeing it. There's no penalty if you don't follow the laws. But even in Pennsylvania, it says that you can't work on a home that you've inspected for a period of 1 year. So asking the question, is this your only business, is a pretty significant question, because I can tell you, I know that there are inspectors out there who became inspectors so that they can drive contracting business their way. That's a huge conflict of interest. We don't want to see that happen at all. So asking that question is a good question. Do they belong to any professional organizations? And I'm not talking about ASHI or NACHI, the two primary home inspection organizations. Other organizations, have they gone and got any other certifications? You can get certifications in building envelope inspections, in remediation oversight inspections, air quality. Like Patty said, like we are, all of our inspectors have lead-free certifications from the EPA. There's all kinds of other certifications that you can get to increase your CV and to aid you in becoming a better home inspector. So great question to ask. Are they required to complete a continuing education? Yes, pretty much everybody is. But you can ask them, what recently have you done in terms of your continuing education? Another thing you can ask them about, hey, your insurance. Do you have insurance? What type of insurance do you have? They should tell you that I have E&O, errors and omission insurance, also known as professional liability insurance. Now, interesting to note that that's not the only type of insurance that I would recommend that an inspector has. You want to ask them if they've got general liability insurance in addition to their errors and omission insurance. You say, well, what's the difference? Okay. Well, if you have errors and omission insurance, let's say you go out on a job and you completely whiff and you miss on something that was, it was quite obvious that this should have been called out on an inspection. They turn around and they bring a claim against you. Well, your errors and omission insurance will cover that because it's something you missed. It's an omission, or you inadvertently misreported on something in your report, and they're saying you made an error in your report. That's the insurance you have to cover yourself, the protection in case somebody comes after you, makes a claim against that. But let's say, what happens if you're doing an inspection, and let's say that you put your ladder up and your ladder falls over and goes through a window and breaks an expensive vase inside the house. Was your errors and omission going to cover that? No, absolutely not. The only unless you have general liability insurance, are you covered for doing any kind of damage on the site when you're there doing the inspection. So it's a good idea to have both, so that you're covered in both instances. And then, of course, if you're a multi-inspector firm, you want to make sure that the inspectors have workman's comp. You can ask for these things, perfectly fine, to say, hey, can you provide me a certificate of insurance? Or you can even instruct your clients to ask for a specific certificate of insurance showing coverage. Also want to get an idea, this is pretty important, and this is something that kind of people miss all the time, and that is asking the inspector what type of, if they have professional liability, which by law they're required to, what type of policy is it? Is it a claims made policy, or is it a per occurrence policy? And so if it's a per occurrence policy, they're usually a little bit more expensive, and that's because there isn't a time limit on which a claim must be reported. And so, with a per occurrence policy, it basically has a lifetime of coverage for any incidents that occurred during which a policy period was in effect. So what do I mean by that? Let's say I was doing home inspections in the year 2014, and I'm good to go. Had insurance during that year, and somebody makes a claim that back in 2014 I missed something. Well, I'm covered, if I have a per occurrence policy. Now, let's say I have a claims made policy, and I had that claims made policy in effect in 2014. And let's say that today, let's say I went out of business last year because of COVID. And let's say I didn't buy tail coverage, and now somebody makes a claim against me about something happened in 2014. Am I covered? No, not unless I purchase tail coverage, and not everybody knows to purchase tail coverage. So with a claims made policy, it's really important that if and we actually, this is what kind of what we carry. I carry a claims made policy, but I know that my tail coverage goes back, and I have coverage all the way back to the day I first started the business. Very important that I maintain that every time I renew a policy, I maintain that tail coverage to make sure that we're covered with that. And so it's just really important that you guys know and understand the difference between the two. And you say, well, why? Why do I care what kind of insurance the inspector has? Well, think about it. Number one, we live in a very litigious society. So what does that mean? It means anybody can sue anybody anytime they want to. So for anything they want to. Yeah, that's the society we live in. It really bothers me to see all these advertisements for attorneys, and I don't want to digress and start on a whole rant about attorneys and anyway, I won't go there. But um, we live in a very litigious society. So if you've got for instance, a home inspector who really has just minimal coverage, doesn't have much coverage at all, and maybe they have a claims made policy and they go out of business or don't keep it up. What happens if a claim pops up? Somebody says, "Hey, I'm suing. I want to sue because I think that this stuff should have been caught, and I've moved into the house, and now I have this problem. Let's say I have a $30,000 problem." Or so yeah, I have what I think is a $30,000 problem. And so they go and they initiate a lawsuit, and then the lawyers start doing their thing, and they start realizing, well, we're suing the home inspector, but they had a claims made policy. They don't even have coverage for this. Well, guess what? An attorney's not going to go, oh, you know what? Your home inspector didn't have coverage. There really isn't anything you can do. No, what's an attorney going to do? They're going to look for everybody and their brother who they can name in a lawsuit. And guess what? That's going to be you as the agent who was involved. Doesn't matter whether you did anything wrong or not. Trust me, you will get drugged into that lawsuit. So having inspectors to have a significant amount of coverage, making sure it's well maintained, is actually protection for you guys. So Ruth is asking, how far back can the per occurrence coverage go? So the way a per occurrence coverage works, Lisa, it doesn't matter when you had it. So let's say I did a home inspection back in 1998. If I had a per occurrence policy in effect at that time, somebody can sue me today, and that policy will cover me because the person making the claim today is saying that the loss occurred when I missed something in an inspection back in 1998. So a per occurrence coverage will cover me that far back. So, and even further, there's no limit on how far back a per occurrence policy will cover you. Now, a claims made policy may cover me all the way back to 1998 or even beyond if I maintain what's known as tail coverage. So tail coverage is, like I said, there should be, when you get every year I get my I can't even think of it. When I get my policy, the declaration page will actually show that I'm covered from this date to this date with tail coverage back to this date. And so it says right on my policy how far back I am covered for. So if anything occurs, I have that coverage to protect me, to protect my client. So that's what that's about. But excellent question. So asking these questions, absolutely, you can ask them anytime you want, guys. You can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Inspector, can you provide me a copy of insurance? Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Inspector, what's the structure of your company? Are you a sole proprietorship? Are you a corporation? You an LLC? Knowing the structure of their company, what happens if, let's say, something bad happens? Let's say, worst case scenario, inspection happens, and somebody performs an inspection, somebody moves into the house, they're in there for a year, 2 years, or whatever, and then there's a fire and somebody dies in that fire. God forbid that should ever happen, but those kinds of things can happen. Well, there's going to be a pretty significant lawsuit, and if Joe Inspector didn't have very much coverage, very likely they're going to be coming back on you, your broker. They're going to name everybody in that suit. And if the structure of their company is a sole proprietorship, for example, and let's say they have a home, I mean, they could that's not a good thing. Any attorney will tell you that if you're in business, you want to get your set up with a proper corporate structure to protect you and protect your personal assets. And so, somebody who's not properly set up that way, very, very easy to, pierce the corporate veil there. They can become the target of a lawsuit. Maybe they are, guilty or negligent or whatever. But the idea here is that if they go down quick, or if they are not very well protected, you're the next one in line, and they're going to come after you. So knowing how long they've been around, are they likely to be around, 2 to 3 years from now? Good questions, and trying to figure out, we're talking about who are you guys guiding your clients to. That's what, it's primarily what we're looking at here. So you can kind of get my gist. We're looking for inspectors that are, and I'm not saying you got to look to us. I'm just saying any inspector. I mean, and I'm not saying that we're the best of the best. Actually, I think we are, but I know there are good inspectors out there. I interact with them. I know who they are. But that's who you guys want to figure out as well. And and it's not just about how they report and do they make your job easier. That's a big part of it. But knowing the corporate structure, knowing the insurance, knowing their training, all these kinds of things are a real benefit to you as well. So what are we talking about here? Well, we're trying to say, hey, is the home inspector going to roll out the red carpet treatment for your clients? You're looking for the same thing your client is, right? Ease of scheduling, longevity, stability, reports that are clear and understandable, professional demeanor, comprehensive insurance. It's all about that user experience that I've been talking about, right? We want to make sure that your clients are going to experience a great experience. Have a great experience. We're going to make sure that they're being taken care of. The focus is on them, and the everything that the inspector or inspection company does is geared up and set up to provide a great experience for them. That's what it's all about. Talking about the inspection format, that's really, really important. People are paying us to do the inspection, but the real meat and potatoes, what they're really doing, the deliverable is really the inspection report, right? So you want to have an inspection report that is, something that's easy for people to understand. You want to make sure that if somebody's looking at an inspection report, they understand the format of the inspection report. Generally, there's two types of inspection reports. There's going to be what I call a checklist style or a narrative style. There could be a hybrid between the two, but a checklist style is just what it sounds like. It's basically a checklist. There's usually boxes, and you're saying that, hey, I inspected this and it was satisfactory, or I inspected this and it was not satisfactory, or I couldn't inspect this, or it wasn't even there, whatever. You're just checking the box, and there's some boilerplate little comment that goes along with it. The other style is a narrative style, where the inspector is actually pulling out a lot more information, usually considerably more detailed. We prefer the narrative style over the checklist style. I'm not saying one's better than the other. We're, like I told you guys, we're going through the process of completely redoing the way we put reports out together. We're really trying to develop, and we're there. We're actually in the beta testing right now. The reports, we're so much looking forward to getting feedback from you guys about the reports that we're going to put out there, because everything we're doing is really focused on delivering a great user experience for you guys with our reports. The way the summary is going to be a separate document that it's a PDF. You don't have to pull it out, copy and paste it, estimates, all these things, and just really trying to make very, very friendly reports. A report should contain, it should document what is contained in the report, also what's excluded from the report. If we're going to exclude something in the report, we need to note that. We need to tell why it was checked or why it wasn't checked. We need to talk about things in the report. Maybe something is what I call performing, albeit non-conforming. That's what this is talking about. It's not really it's functioning, but it isn't really functioning as designed, or it is functioning, but they didn't quite do it right, or they didn't install according to the standard. That being said, it's still functioning. So, we just need to walk through that accurately. Every good inspection, if you're going to call something out, I don't care, checklist style, narrative style, it should have these 4 elements of a good narrative. And that is a description, a location, an implication, and a recommendation. A description, an accurate description of what it is that we're trying to bring to the client's attention. A location. I try to drive this in our inspectors all the time. Super important that if we're going to report on something, we can't just do a description of what it is and then just throw a picture in there, and you're supposed to extrapolate from that picture. That needs to go into the description. It's on the front right corner of the house, and this, and then also an implication of if we're calling something out, why are we calling it out? Well, it's a safety hazard. It's a tripping hazard. There's broken glass when that's a safety hazard. Well, there needs to be an implication, and then a recommendation for a resolution. Now, the recommendation isn't going to be a step-by-step, manual on exactly what to do. It is just basically we're trying to get you and point you down a path towards a solution. I apologize. Look, let me close this door. Sorry about that. Delivery guy's here. Yeah, he has an opinion on it. That was his narrative. So Robin's laughing. Robert's saying, can you videotape him during the inspection? Are you talking about videotaping the inspector during the inspection, Robert? If you are, I mean, that's going to be up to the inspector. I've had people videotape me. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not a big fan of it. Just I don't know. To me, that's just a little weird. I know some people do that, but that's going to make most inspectors feel a little uncomfortable, just because it's. I understand somebody having a desire to do that. They want to get the detail. They want to make sure they don't miss anything. But it's going to the inspector or you. The inspector or you video. Yeah, well, that's one of the things that we're going to start doing in our new reports is actually taking video clips and putting them in the report. Yes, we're going to start doing that. But as far as actually videoing the inspector making comments and stuff like that on site, I'm not a big fan of that, primarily because if I'm making a comment on site, I may make comments on site that might not necessarily align with what's going on in the report. Now, your first response to that might be, well, now, wait a minute, what do you mean? Well, I sometimes might say things to people where I'm just really trying to educate them on what we have with the house. Let's say that, hey, I'm going to put this in the report and I'm going to say this, but it might sound like this is a pretty serious issue, but let him help you understand what I'm really saying here. And that's what I'm talking about. And quite often the way it goes into the report, it might sound like it's, oh my gosh, you try to make that not be the case, but quite often I'll explain things to people to make them feel more comfortable, let them know that I don't really think this is a really big concern here, but it's something I do need to put in the report. That's what I'm talking about. So if my report says one thing and I'm saying something that sounds a little different in the field, I don't like having that video evidence of that, is what I'm saying. So just from a legal perspective. So the delivery of the report, everybody, remember expectations, people being in alignment, with what's actually going to happen, understanding when the report's going to be available, how it's going to be delivered. Really, really important. We don't want people asking questions. And I've had this happen where, for instance, people asking me, am I going to get a copy of the report? How am I going to get the report? Things. I really don't even want them asking those questions on inspection day, because it detracts from their experience on inspection day. So I like all that stuff to be answered ahead of time. We answer it, but it's a good idea if you kind of review that with them as well. This is a big deal, again, and this should be conveyed to them prior to the inspection, but will the inspector be readily available to follow up with questions, to answer questions that they might have? And your inspector absolutely should, but again, we don't want them asking questions or wondering about things that, I just simply want people focused on being there to ask questions about the house, just having a great time. Inspection day is not going, in my opinion, doesn't have to be a negative day. It's really a day when you get the transparency, the clarity, ask questions, spend time learning about the house. I look at it as a great day, an educational day, a day of edification. And that's really the way I want the buyer, the client to feel when they're out there. So when it comes to the cost of the inspection, we kind of talked about this before. Inspections aren't commodities. All inspectors are not created equal. Cheaper is not always better. You generally get what you pay for, right? So guys, we are going to take a break. And let's see, it's 104. Let's come back at 115. At 115, we're going to circle back. So you can get up, do your jumping jacks, move around, bathroom break, get a cup of coffee, take a couple phone calls. Robin's asking the question, I do not attend inspections with my buyer. I feel that it is their time with you. How do you feel? Robin, I'm going to answer that question when we come back from break. How's that? We actually address that question here in detail. So that's a great question. And we'll look at that when we come back. So 115, guys, we're going to circle back. When we come back, we'll do a little poll and ask you a couple questions. No test here today. You don't have to worry about taking tests. So go ahead, take your break. We'll see you at 115. All right, guys, so we're back and let's do a quick poll here. See who's like this girl here face down in a puddle of drool or who hasn't come back yet. Let's take a quick poll. So let's talk about the inspection formats. I'm going to launch this poll. Here it goes. And so answer the question. A home inspection report should include a description of each concern or condition, the location, the issue, implication, a recommendation, all of the above. What are your thoughts? Excuse me. Let's see how many people are back with us. Let's see what your thoughts are on this. Covered this a little bit before we took our break. So let's see what we come up with here. So we're talking about the inspection report and particularly a narrative in the inspection report. What should it include? Let's see, we've got about 2/3 of you have already responded. So let's see what we have. Give it another couple seconds here. All right, so I want to end the polling and then I'm going to share the results. And so most of you said that you thought all of these things should be included in the report. Any one of these answers would have been correct. All of the above is probably the best answer because yes, all of those things, the description, the location, the implication, and the recommendation, all things that should go into a good narrative. If those things aren't in a narrative, you should make your home inspector aware of that and say, hey, I was told that it should include a description, location, implication, recommendation. How come it's not? So let's take a look at another poll. Let's do another quick poll here. So actually, this question was asked just before we took the break. So let me see what you guys think of this. We haven't covered this yet, but I want to see what your opinion is. And so the question is, as I launch it here, the buyer should not attend the inspection. True or false? Actually, the question was, should an agent, the buyer's agent, but in this question, we're asking the buyer should not attend the inspection. True or false? What are your thoughts? And getting some pretty quick answers here. Give it a couple more seconds. See, seeing how many people respond to this also tells me how many people are actually watching or how many people have wandered off or haven't come back from break yet. So, or are still asleep like the girl in the picture here. All right, so let me go ahead and a couple more seconds. I'll wrap that up. All right, there we go. I'm going to share the results. Most of you said that this is false. Somebody said it was true. It is false. And so, at least my opinion is a buyer should attend the inspection almost, well, not almost every single time. There are times when they can't attend the inspection. I've done inspections where people were in California, they're moving and they just couldn't get away, or they hoped that they would be there, didn't make it there, whatever. I understand things like that do happen, but definitely want to make sure they're there if we can have them there at all possible. We're going to cover that here in just a second in pretty good detail. Also going to talk about whether or not agents should attend. So what we're going to do, we can see we're equipping the buyer for the home inspection. Like I said, a lot of this is really focused on setting those expectations. We all know what it's like. I always like to say, even the Bible talks about this. There's a verse in the Bible that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And that's basically what we're saying here on the chalkboard here. Disappointment is reality, is expectation divided by reality. All right. That's the mathematical equation. So what they're saying is, if your expectation is met, that's perfect satisfaction, right? But when we have disappointment, it's because the expectation didn't align with reality. You can see here, how many times have we seen this example where you see this beautiful, food being on a TV ad? It would absolutely, utterly amaze us. In fact, I should include a video of the amount of effort that goes in to food photography for advertising purposes. The lighting's got to be right, shadowing's just got to be right. The things got to glisten. They're absolutely all these different aspects. This little pickle and the way this onion is oriented, and the amount of ketchup that's coming, it's all done to absolute perfection. And then when you go there and buy it, this is what you end up with when you take it out of the wrapper, right? Nothing like what your expectations were set to be. That's a serious disappointment. I can tell you in my lifetime how I can't even count how many times I've gone and seen something, and then when I go and actually get what is supposed to be delivered to me, you talk about disappointment. Um, if I were a kid, I'd probably be rolling on the ground, stamping my feet, crying, right? Can't do that because I'm an adult, but inside, that's what I'm doing, right? Well, we don't want our clients to feel that way. So, not setting expectations proactively for the buyer is a big mistake. Talk about epic fail. Yes, absolutely. We absolutely want to do everything we can to set those expectations for the buyer. Now, you can probably talk till you're blue in the face sometimes with some people, and they're just not going to hear you, right? So there are things you can do. Yes, you can verbally set those expectations. You've got FaceTime, you're with them. You can start from the time you start looking at homes, you're looking at homes that they're never even going to put an offer in. You can start setting their expectations with what they should expect with regards to a home inspection. The more you do that, and I know it's additional work, but the more you do that, the smoother you're going to make inspection day go, because what you're doing is that you're aligning their expectations with what is actually going to happen. They're not going to have this. They're not going to have a situation where their expectations aren't going to be met. So you've been out, you've been doing this a while. You know how inspections go. You know what they should inspect. Well, getting them to that point where they know going into it proactively before it happens what to expect is a big deal. Now, there's some things that you can use to help you in this. You can insist that your clients read the inspection agreement. The inspection agreement is going to do a great job of laying out exactly what it is and what is not included in an inspection. It's going to help them understand that there's a contract between us and there are contractual obligations that need to be met. And it doesn't take that long to read. Now, I can tell you, as the owner of my business and the person that deals with issues when they pop up retroactively, that most people have no idea. They didn't read their agreement. They say things, they imply things, they ask questions, and it definitely leads me to believe that the vast majority of people don't read the inspection agreement. It's not a difficult document to read. It does a great job. We've got ours crafted so that it's understandable, but it really lays out what they should expect and what they should not expect from an inspection. The other thing they can do is the standards of practice. You can go onto our website and pull down the nationally recognized standards of practice. It's nationally mandated standards of practice. It's the criteria by which all inspections in this country, in North America, and quite frankly the world, are performed. And it's a very easy document to read. It might be like 5 pages long, but the gaps between the lines are this big. But it really lets them understand. It simply says an inspector is required to report on this. An inspector is required to do this. An inspector is not required to do this. An inspector is not required to do that. Very, very clear, simple, and it lays it all out for me. It gives them a real good understanding of what's included in the scope of the inspection. If I'm an agent, now I don't do this every day, but if I'm an agent, I'm actually even reviewing that in detail with them, just because I want inspection today to go very, very smoothly. Another thing that we want to do is to make sure that they know in terms of what is going to be inspected, things like outbuildings, pools, spas, in-law quarters. Yeah, we can inspect them, but that might be an additional cost. And every once in a while, we'll go out to an inspection, and we were told that it's a 2,500 square foot 3-bedroom house built in 1982. And we go out there, and that's great, but the driveway extends to the back, and guess what? There's a 4-car garage with a full in-law suite above it, with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and kitchen, and no, that's not included in the inspection unless we predetermine that. And so if we're going to have a situation where we're going to go out there and go, well, that wasn't included in the inspection, we're going to inspect the house and the garage that's attached to the house. That's what we were told was here, and the buyer's thinking that they're going to get that inspected. That is not a conversation that needs to happen on inspection day. That needs to happen prior to it. Not going to get a fastball bias by trying to, and I'm not saying you or the clients do this. I'm just saying that, we need to hammer that stuff out ahead of time. We want inspection day to be a day when just the client is just getting that clarity that they need about the house. They're getting to ask all the questions that they want to ask. I don't want them distracted with questions about, are you going to do this? Or are you going to do that? Or is this included? Is this not included? I don't, inspection day is not the day to be figuring that out. That should all be figured out ahead of time. And if they're thinking about all those things, they're being distracted and they're not getting the best user experience that we can possibly deliver to them. So Daniel's saying, no matter how many times I explain the shed in the back of the property is not included. Yeah, so sometimes you can talk to your blue in the face and they're just not going to get it. And that's fine. We'll walk through it. We'll get through it. And we do it every day. But yeah, I mean, sometimes people just don't hear you. But everything we can do to lay that groundwork ahead of time is going to make that day go much more smoothly. So what happens if the inspector finds problems, right? So we have very weird jobs, home inspectors do. We get paid basically to find what's wrong, to find problems. And so I don't need to find problems to justify my existence. If I could find a house that was flawless and didn't have anything wrong and I didn't have to report it, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. We have a template for that house, and we have never, in all the tens of thousands of inspections we performed, we've yet to find that house. So it's just not out there. There's some great houses that have next to nothing wrong with them, but the perfect house, I don't think it exists. We find brand new homes we inspect actually have things wrong with them. We do tons of new construction inspection. They're built by human beings, flawed human beings building flawed homes. I mean, they do build wonderful homes, but they've got some there's issues with everything. So it's just the reality of it. And so most inspectors are going to find some things wrong. Doesn't matter. Brand new house, old house, top of the market, bottom of the market, big, small, whatever, we're going to find problems. Here's the thing. Number one, clients need to expect that we're going to find these things. For a client to have been falling in love with this house for the past week or so, 10 days, whatever amount of time transpires before the inspection, and to really develop all these unrealistic expectations of the house, only to get out there to have their expectations dashed on a rock by an inspector who's just observing what he sees when he sees it, that's not going to be a great experience. So we want them to have an understanding that we're going to go out there, even a home. We teach a class. I just taught it a couple 2 days ago, I think it was. We teach a class where it's all about inspecting newer homes, and we spend a lot of time talking about people's expectations. You buy a home that's 8 years old, in your mind, you're basically buying a new home. There should be next to nothing wrong with that house. Same thing from the seller's perspective. They're selling a home that new. They're thinking there's nothing wrong with that house. That's not the reality of it. There's things starting to wear out and break down. It's been lived in for 8 years. There's going to be some things. So that's the number one thing, is we got to do a great job of aligning expectations with that. The other thing is that inspectors, it's really incumbent upon us. Now you can do this as well, but it's incumbent upon us to really get that point across. Hey, home buyer, yes, here we're calling out an issue here. This is a materially defective condition, but it can be fixed. If it can be built, it can be fixed. And I don't really care how serious an issue it is. I'm never going to classify something as a serious issue. I just won't use that kind of language, because my goal is to convey the concept that, hey, there's something materially defective here, but it's also to convey the concept that, hey, I don't care. I don't care if we have a foundation in a state of catastrophic failure. I'm going to come at it from this perspective that I see this every day, and there's absolutely a solution to fix this. If it can be built, it can be fixed. So that's the perspective that we need to have. We don't want to go ourselves to kind of like, oh my gosh, this I've never seen one this bad. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. No, 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 no. That's not how we handle ourselves. That's not how I train people to handle themselves out there. So what are we trying to avoid? We're trying to avoid this buyer freak out syndrome, right? So when does buyer freak out syndrome happen? I've seen it happen. I see it happen all the time, and it happens because people walk into a house and they think that their house that they're buying is absolutely perfect, and we start to reveal some things and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Oh, I have no idea how we're going to cope and deal with this. And I go, to me, right as soon as I hear that, as soon as I can see the stress and anxiety, I can see the red in their face fill up, and I can see them starting to just go into hyper anxiety mode. I know that agent on that side of the deal probably didn't do anything to set their expectations of what was going to happen. Um, like Daniel said, sometimes they don't listen, but I think more often than not, it's a situation where people just they weren't brought into the know, and so there's going to be sometimes when you've spent all that, you did everything you could, you set expectations, you really try to educate your client to walk into that day, and on inspection day, it just wasn't meant to be because that house and that client are just not a match. It's just they are just not going to be comfortable no matter what anybody says or whatever. It's just they're going to see some things that, hey, somebody's going to be comfortable here, but it's not going to be me, and you need to find me another house. That's going to happen sometimes. You're not going to be perfect in marrying that perfect house with the perfect client every time. That's the reality of it. That's the business that we're in. But sometimes, and if that's the case, they'll move on. You'll help them find another house. Somebody else will move into that house. That's all a matter of people's comfort level. But when it comes to whether or not um, the deal's going to fall apart, the reality of it is most of the time, it's not the inspection or the inspector that kills the deals. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I know there are inspections where there are inspectors out there that they even have the nickname deal killer. Because again, and if they do, more than likely, it goes back to what I said in the last hour. It's because there's the humility is not there. There's a lot of ego involved. They feel like they've got authority. They feel like they can kind of throw their weight around or whatever. And what I've seen is the guys that are called the deal killers and they actually do kill deals. It's because of that. If an inspector is doing their job, then they're doing it with humility. They're just simply going to observe and report. And so usually it's the actual conditions, it's the people, the buyers and the sellers not being able to work things out. Maybe they're getting their ego in the way of things, or just not being unreasonable. Usually that's what kills the deals. But if we could do everything we can to set realistic expectations leading into that, quite often we can avoid that buyer freak out syndrome, where people are just I've seen it where people just like, oh, they're just utterly shocked and terrified, and they're just looking at this going like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. They're just they're not figuring out, do they have to pay? I've actually had clients looking and hey guys, come here, and I'm just showing them something, maybe it's a $300 repair, it's not that big a deal at all, and they're looking at it going like, uh, do I have to pay for that? How's this going to work? They have no idea how this is going to work. That you're going to negotiate and go back, and they don't even know. And so I know that the agent's not done a good job of walking them through. Agents dealing with everything retroactively. They're reacting to everything rather than being proactive. You're gonna do a lot more deals if you're very, very proactive with this stuff that I'm talking about. Another thing, big deal here, man. I can't tell you, your reaction, how you react, how you handle yourself, just how you carry yourself during an inspection has a huge influence. I can tell you guys, your clients pay attention to what you're saying. You may not think they are, but believe me, they are relying on you, your expertise, to guide them through this process. I can tell them all I want to tell them. I can convince them of things, but when everything's all said and done, they're going to turn around and pay attention to what you're doing and not necessarily what you say. Quite often, they're just watching you, they're reading your body language. So if you could just remain calm, if you can relax during the inspection, read a magazine, help them take measurements, talk about the closing. You can ask questions. You can follow the inspector around, but there's a difference between just being there and being a calm presence, and then being the helicopter agent who's anticipating the next shoe dropping, the deal falling apart. You might be that. You might be the helicopter agent who's just waiting for this thing to fall apart, but you might not. You're not saying that, but trust me, my goodness, the buyers know, the clients know, they sense that stuff. I mean, I've seen, I've had, I can't tell you how many times I've had buyers walk up to clients, say, "Hey, you know, the agents, they're away. Can I don't want my agent getting the report before I get it, or I don't, do we have to tell the agent this or what?" They say stuff like that, and it's usually the vast majority of the time they're really really focused in and want to know what the agent says. But I've seen the situations where the agents lost it. They've lost that trust. They've lost that, where the people can sense that all the agent is thinking is, I'm going to lose this deal. You got to take a step back. You got to relax. It's situations where, like it says here, if a smile's contagious, wow, the nervousness is completely infectious. I mean, I've seen it. And what we're going to talk a little bit about sellers agents showing up during inspections too. I'll save it for that. I have comments about that as well. But it's a really, really big deal here, guys. How you handle yourself, that they are absolutely paying attention to what you're doing. I'll give you an example. I've been on situations where, hey, guys, come on down here in the basement. I want to show you something here. I found something here. We have a situation that's going to need to be addressed. Now, this can be fixed, and maybe it's some kind of structural failure. Maybe there's a cracked foundation. There's some displacement, whatever. There's been some movement, and I'm going to walk them through and let them know that, hey, there's absolutely a path forward here. I don't really think this is a big deal. I think we can get a structural engineer to develop a prescription for remedial action, but I think this is what he's going to say. We're going to need to stabilize this, do that. Probably going to cost, yeah, it might cost a couple $1,000s, whatever. But I'm going to walk them through and let them know that, hey, I'm calling this out. I don't think it's a big deal. In my mind, this is an easy path forward. I do everything I can to get them to that point. I feel like I've walked them back off the edge. They're thinking, okay, I can see the path forward here. And I'm done talking to them. As soon as I'm done talking to them, I've seen this happen. I don't know how many times. As soon as I'm done talking to them, whoosh, their eyes go immediately to their agent. Now that I'm done talking, and they're looking at you and they're going, do I need to be afraid? They're not saying anything. They're not even asking you about anything. They're just looking at you. And all they're doing is trying to read your body language, trying to get a sense of what's going on. And if you look like this, guess what? You just lost that deal. They're walking away. They know now they need to be terrified. Doesn't matter if you recover and you say, hey, blah, 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 and no, it's done. In their mind, they know that they need to be afraid simply because of the look, just because of the body language you had. They could tell that you were nervous. The correct response after I get done walking them back off the ledge and they turn around and look at you, they need to see, yeah, I got this. I deal with this all the time. Sure, yeah, structural engineer. We got a list of them. We deal with them all the time. This isn't anything that's no big deal. I got this. That's what they need to sense. If they sense that, then they're going, oh, and I've seen this play out so many times where I can see when I first start talking to them, say, hey guys, look, the foundation here. I guess you didn't see this before, but there's been some movement, and you can just see the blood go up and the stress and the anxiety. Their body language is like they're going, oh crap, oh no. But I've seen it and then I start talking and bring it down, and then they turn and the agent is just backing me up and they're like, God, I got this, no problem. And you can just see like, oh, the weight's just been lifted. I mean, it's just amazing to see that play out and the dynamics of that right in front of your eyes. It's just it's the the it's just funny to see that play out now, but it's not funny when when it goes the other way and the deal goes sideways because of the way somebody reacted. But such a big deal. I can't tell you how big a deal that is. So How about this? Who should be at the inspection? We talked about this before. Should the buyer be at the inspection? I forget who was it that said, should the, was it Danielle who said that? So Robin said, should I be at the inspection? So personally, do we address that here? I want to see. So no, I don't think we do. So let me answer Robin's question first. Robin had asked before we took the break, should the buyer's agent be at the inspection? Um, I actually like it when they are. Now, I'm not saying my answer is the right answer. My opinion's the best one. Um, I think it's good if the buyer's agent's there because you are, by definition, you're an advocate. You're an agent. You're there representing the interest of the client. Robin made a good point. I like them to have that full attention with the inspector, and that's actually a good point. That's actually the point that we're making here on the slide. I want that one-on-one communication with the client. I want them to be able to ask me all the questions they want to ask me. I don't want them distracted with other side conversations and things like that. I mean, that's fine if you're going to have, but what I do during my inspections, I'll go out and first thing I do is the exterior, and I'll tell everybody, hey guys, I'm Pete. This is what I'm going to do. Good to meet you. Hey guys, if you want to follow me around, follow me around. Ask all the questions you have. Now, in reality, what happens is I normally lose them after about 5 minutes, and usually the buyer and the agent usually end up by the front outside, or maybe they go inside and they're talking about whatever. But I'll bring them out before I'm done the outside. I'll say, guys, come on, let me just walk you around, show you what I'm seeing here. And I just want to show them. Why do I want to show them? I want to show them because just like I said earlier, what I write in the report might not necessarily align with what I want to tell them in person. Now, I'm not trying to say two different things. What I'm saying here is that if I write something in the report, I have to be very descriptive, and I want to let them know that this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And usually, the language that I do that it's very hard to write it's very hard to write a narrative. To be honest with you, because you want to make sure you're being very accurate, and you want to hit all those 4 points: the description, location, implication, recommendation. But you need to do that in such a way that you're not trying to terrify people, right? So it's hard to do that with the language because they're going to read and they're going to interpret it the wherever they're reading it. If I have that one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball, face-to-face conversation, I can tell them exactly this is what I'm going to put in a report, and this is what I really think about it. This, I can do this. Maybe you want to think about this. This really isn't that big a deal. If you get, I can even talk about you get put this out to a contractor. You're probably going to get contractors that are going to go, well, then they're going to give you crazy prices. But in reality, you should probably be right about here. And so much more I can add to that issue rather than what I have to put in the report. So I want that. Now, I like the buyer's agent to be there for that because number one, they can back me up. Number two, they can be there. They've been through this so many times. They can help the client through that. And so I understand the idea of not being there, but in reality, I would prefer that buyer's agent is there. Completely get it. If you're not, don't have a problem with that. I know some buyer's agents are like, look, I've spent a lot of time on inspections and just didn't feel like they were getting a whole lot out of me being there. Okay, fine, I get it, not a problem. But personally, I think it's probably better if you're there. Um, and just explain, does the client need to be there for the whole inspection? Yeah, I prefer that they are, for that reason. I'm going to bring you out after I finish the outside. I'm going to bring you down into the basement, and then I want to circle back with you at the end of the inspection, unless you've been with me all along, in my back pocket the whole way, which I'm perfectly cool with. Now, some inspectors are going to be a little bit freaked out by that. If you're following some inspectors around and asking questions the whole time, remember everybody's wired different. I love having a gang around. We're just all engaged in the same thing. Super cool. That's going to be the next point we're going to make is how many people at an inspection. But some inspectors, no, some inspectors are really they're really detail oriented. Guys with an engineering background, they're going to be a lot less social, and they're going to be a lot more focused on all the details of what it is that they're looking at and going down very, very methodically. And that's just the way they're wired. And that's okay. So we have some inspectors that are really social, some inspectors, the feedback's been, man, they don't really say a whole lot when they're out there. They do a great inspection, but It's like talking to a rock, So, but that's their personality, right? And so that's what makes the world go round. So who should you bring to the inspection? We got the picture here. You got the party going on. This was actually taken at one of my inspections. No, I'm just kidding. It was not. But I've had inspections that look like this. And so if we were together in a classroom, I'd ask everybody to raise their hand and say, raise your hand if you've had more than 5 people attend an inspection. And most everybody, the hands go up, and pretty much all the hands in the room. And I say, keep your hands up if you've had more than 10 people attend an inspection. Most of the hands come down. There might be a few that are still up. How about 12? Anybody 12? And usually most of the hands come down. And then I tell them, my record's 16. I've had 16 people attend an inspection. And I'll tell you, it was like this. It was just like this picture here. It was a party. We had a blast. We had fun. We laughed. I mean, I'm trying to do the inspection, and I got people, Mr. Pete, what about this? Pete, check this out. Hey, Pete, look at this. Hey, Pete, how's it? What's this go with that? And yeah, it was, but we had a blast. We were laughing. We got to know each other, told stories, and it was just a hoot. But I have to ask you, yeah, Sir Robinson, I cringe when they bring the entire family to a showing. Well, that's one of my points here is that, yes, we're going out and looking for a home, or yes, we're going and inspecting a home, but this is somebody else's house. And so I always want to be respectful of that. And so that's number one. Bringing a whole bunch of people out to have kids and everybody climbing all over everything, probably not very respectful. Number two, I have to ask the question, using the example I just gave, 16 people, we had a blast. I mean, I remember to this day that inspection, one of the inspections I'll never forget. But I have to ask the question, did my clients get the best possible experience during that inspection? And I have to honestly say, no, they did not. They didn't get hardly any one-on-one time with me. They couldn't follow around and get educated on the property, ask questions. They had so many distractions going on that they didn't get the best user experience there. And it was because there's really too many people at that inspection. Now, today with COVID, I mean, we actually ask that no more than 2 people and social distance and all that stuff. But this isn't going to last, guys. We are going to go back to normal. And even today, with everything we have going on, we roll up on us. I've had where we've had 12 people climbing around the house because contractors are there, agents, sellers are still home, and nobody, everybody's still there, and that's okay in today's world with COVID. If the sellers are staying home and working from home, most of the time that's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. Most of the people are very respectful. They just kind of stay on their own. Talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So answering questions, asking your clients questions, it's our responsibility as inspectors to answer questions for people. But remember, I said it's really good if your inspector's available afterwards. We set up our business so the inspectors none of our inspectors do radon. We use radon techs to do that. So our radon techs go out and place and retrieve. We don't give that task to the inspectors. Why? Because I want them focused on the inspection. They go out. All they have to do is they get notified. You're scheduled for an inspection. Go out, do the inspection, come back, write the report, and then be available to answer questions. Follow up. Talk to contractors, the seller, with the permission of the buyers. Anybody that has questions, we want to make sure that we're there to answer them in a very timely fashion. So that's what we want to do. That being said, we're not going to know the answers to all the questions we get. Even the best inspectors, like it says, they don't know everything and they're willing to admit it. I've had people come on board, and the number one reason why inspectors wash out of our program, their training program, is because they were not willing to do this. It's weird. I mean, you would think that they wash out for other reasons, not being educated enough on how to do inspection stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I'll teach you how to do an inspection. I'll spend, I don't care how long it takes. I've spent more than 6 months with people in training with me, intense training, to bring them up to speed to be able to do inspections. We spend all the time in the world with people to bring them up to a level of proficiency to be able to do inspections for us. We're not going to send anybody out there that hasn't met that level of proficiency. That being said, the people that generally wash out of our program were people who started training with us and then started as I was doing the oversight, They would actually have no problem at all basically faking it until they made it. Fake it till you make it, right? They would say things that just weren't true. Why? Because they were unwilling to say, I don't know. They felt like they had to have an answer for everything. That's not a good thing. If we don't know the factual, truthful statement about something, we're not going to provide anything else. And so it's fine to say, hey, I don't know, but I'll look into that. I'm going to ask all of our inspectors. We're going to get an opinion on this. I'll get back to you. I'll research it, whatever. That's fine. The inspector should be able to point the client in the right direction to solve mysteries. We should be able to put you on the path towards a solution and be able to tell you what the end result should be. That's what a good inspector it will do. And that's what we're saying here. So very, very important. Other things that we want to be aware of, and that is that actually, this is something that you guys should actually walk through with your clients, and that is that you should explain to the buyer their options for dealing with the condition. What are you going to do? Then something we're going to find some things on the inspection. How are we going to deal with that? I've been, and this should all be done before the inspection takes place. You guys should have in place a game plan. You should say, hey, buyers, come here. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Tomorrow's inspection day. When we go out there, guess what? I know that was a beautiful house, but that inspector is going to find some things that we aren't even aware of. And there are going to be some things that need to be fixed, they need to be addressed, they need to be corrected, whatever it is. This is how we're going to deal with it, and whatever that is. If it's over X amount of dollars, we're going to ask for this, or we're going to do that. But they need to know that you've got a game plan in place. And this is we're going. And the reason I say this is because I've been on inspections. Like I said, I've been on inspections where I'd say, hey, Mr. Buyer, come on over here. I want to show you this. This is wrong. This is broken. We're going to ask them to, this needs to be fixed. And the look on that, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. Well, to me, this isn't a big deal at all. Okay, it's no big deal. It's broke. Water heater's leaking. It needs to be replaced. It happens. That's life, right? Buyer comes along and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I thought the water heater was going to last me for a few years. And all of a sudden you see the blood come up, the anxiety, the stress, the hair's kind of, and they're just, they're freaking out. And I'm like, why are they freaking out? They should know they're just going to ask the, seller to negotiate this, at least put a new one in or give them a credit for it or whatever. But the agent didn't do anything to set those expectations. The agent didn't prepare them at all. And so what does that do? Now they're out there, they're having a freak out during the inspection when they really should be, oh, okay, my agent told me we got that covered. I know exactly what we're going to do with that. And they're just back focusing on continuing to what that should happen during inspection day. And that is they should continue to fall in love with that house. When they picked up that phone and said, hey, can you help me find a house? You helped them find a house. They put the offer in, offer got accepted. They came back and said, yep, okay, this is great. This is the one this is the one we're going to move forward with. What happened? Like I said, they started going online, looking at all those pictures. They started falling in love with that house. Inspection day is a day when that should continue on. Inspection day should bring it all together. Like, yep, we got this. We're moving forward. This is awesome. We know what we're going to do. Yeah, there are some things we found here. Some things need to be fixed. Maybe some things, well, that was more than I thought we were going to have, but still, we got the game plan. We know how we're going to move forward. That's what inspection day should be. Another thing you guys should talk about is, hey, you guys do any damage if you go into this house? Remember, this is somebody else's house. They still live here. If you go in here and bust the place up, guess what? You're going to be on the hook for it. So, be careful. And that's, just sometimes they just don't know. I've been on inspections, and this is such a crazy business that we're involved in, the real estate business. People are they're here on inspection day, and it's like they've moved in. It's like they've already bought the house. It's already there's no, somebody else still lives here, guys. We got to be respectful of that. So, advising the buyer on the time frame of the inspection. You think, well, do I have to do that? Do they really? Is this necessary? Yes. Typical inspection is going to be 2 to 4 hours. I've been on inspections where I'm just finishing up the outside. I spent 40 minutes on the outside, and it's like 9:45, and I'm just saying, hey guys, come on, I want to show you what we got here. We summarize 9:45, 9:50. We're just getting ready to go in. The inspections, still got more than probably 2 hours to go. And the buyer's looking at his watch going, how long is this thing going to be? I got an appointment at 10:30. agent didn't do and didn't do their job to prepare them for that. And it goes on the sell side too. I mean, I've started an inspection at 9, 10:30. The seller's going up saying, "Oh, you guys are still here." Well, no, guys, we got to make sure everybody's in there. Don't assume that people know. Most people have no idea what goes on during inspection day. No idea how long it takes. No idea. Maybe they went through it before. That guy I said looked at his clock and said, "How long is this going to be? I got an appointment." He said what came out of his mouth next was, "I had an inspection before years ago. It took 45 minutes." Now, I have no idea what kind of inspection he got that only took 45 minutes, but his expectations were absolutely out of alignment with reality. I mean, you go out and you do a good inspection, looking at all the things that we're looking at. 2.5 to 3 hours is normal. And if you've got somebody who's asking a lot of questions, and sometimes we get that new buyers, very, very detailed people. I mean, the questions just don't stop. They're just asking about this, asking about that. Can you reiterate that? I don't understand that. Can you show me this? And we're happy to do it, but that's going to make the inspection go longer. I'm not going to not do parts of the inspection just because they're asking a lot of questions. I'm still going to do everything we're supposed to do, and explaining the summarization of the inspection. This says during the last half hour. I don't like the last half hour thing. I don't like to do the whole inspection 2.5 hours, and say, "Hey guys, come on, let me summarize for you what I'm seeing here." I like to break it up. I like to finish the outside, like I said. Let's talk about that, and then we can walk through it. If I got to wait till the last, just everybody's getting ready to leave and they got other places to go, and I'm going to try and summarize it and answer all their questions, nah, that's really not the best way to go about it. I, I'm not necessarily going to remember everything that I wanted to see. We're not actually going to go around and look at all those things so I can stand there and explain it to them. I would much rather do that because I want to have a sense when I walk away from an inspection. I shake hands, or back in the old days when we'd shake hands and walk away. I want to have a sense walking away that they're comfortable. They know what I think about everything. They know that I know that there's a plan forward, that this is good. I want that. If we get to the end of the inspection, it's just like, okay, the agent's like, I got to be somewhere else, and this, I don't like trying to summarize everything. Then, I like to get to the end of the inspection and just basically say, guys, I've shown you everything I have to show you. Any other questions you have, and then we can roll. Let's get out. It's just, I think it's better that way. Guys, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to take another break here. And let's circle back here at 110. It's 158. I'm sorry, 210. At 210, we will come back and regroup and move on to the next section. All right. So see you guys at 210. All right, guys, we're back. I to wipe the crumbs off. I just had a little snack. So, all right. So, what are we looking at next? Well, we're kind of talking about advising the buyer. Now, what about advising the seller? And somebody might say, well, what the heck can a seller do to prepare for a home inspection? Well, you would probably, you may know, but if not, you might probably be amazed. There's actually quite a bit a seller can do to prepare for a home inspection. And I know that the perception out there is that from a seller's perspective, it's like, oh, a home inspection, here we go. It's shakedown time. They're going to try to grab us by our feet, shake all the change out of our pockets, and they're going to try and beat us over the head. And how we well, okay, maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know, but let's walk through this and look at some of the things you can do from a seller's perspective. When sometimes people think that, oh, we go through the inspection process, they're going to come back at us, try to renegotiate this, that, the other thing. While all that might be true, you're still a seller. You are still you have a product that you're trying to sell to people, and you want them, actually, you want, as a seller of a product, you want them to have a great experience too. And so home inspection day, if you look at home inspection day the same way I do, is a day when they can learn about that house, be educated about that house. Yeah, we might find some things that need to be addressed or whatever, but look at that in a positive light rather than a negative light. And one of the, it can be a very positive outcome for you as well. Last thing you want to do is have inspection day to be the day when they get, everything gets turned sideways and they walk away. There's a lot that a seller can do, a lot that a seller's agent can do to help a seller prepare for this. One of the easiest things to do, just make sure everything is turned on. All the appliances turned on, everything's functional. You can walk through, make sure the stove's working, everything's turned on, no breakers are tripped. If we get out there on a breaker's trip, I'm not supposed to turn that breaker on. Normally, if a breaker's tripped, there's a reason why the breaker is tripped. If I get out there and there's a shutoff valve shut off, there's a reason why that shutoff valve's turned off. Let me tell you a story. We had one of our inspectors went into an inspection. I want to say it was up Quakertown or somewhere up that way. Went into the inspection. Actually, it was a really nice house that they had literally just finished renovating the bathroom, the master bathroom, did a beautiful job. When he got up to the master bathroom, checked everything out, but when he went to turn the shower on, turn the faucet on for the shower, no water. Oh, okay, what's going on here? Well, he's just used the normal controls to turn it on. Nothing happened. So I'm going to write that in the report. Say, okay, the shower was non-functional. We need to get a plumber to determine why it was non-functional and why it didn't operate using normal controls. Well, the buyer was like, well, I'd really like to know, did they shut it off? I mean, what? And the buyer's agent said, well, I think I saw the valves turned off to what I thought might have been for this. Let's go downstairs and look at that. So they did, went downstairs. They looked at it, and the home inspector said, yeah, I saw this too. I thought that might have been feeding up here. And it was all brand new. It was new PEX lines. You could tell that this was just recently worked on, but the water supply to the hot and cold, obviously leading to the shower, had been shut off. And so the buyer said, well, can you turn that on so we can test it out? And the home inspectors, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to turn valves like this on. It's not a good idea. And so the buyer said to the buyer's agent, well, can I turn it on? And the buyer's agent correctly said, that's not a good idea for you to do it either. It's not your house. And the buyer said, well, will you turn it on? And the buyer's agent said, if he's not turning it on, I'm not turning it on. Well, guess who happened to be there at that time? The seller's agent was there, the listing agent. And the listing agent heard the whole thing. He said, oh, I'll turn it on. The home inspector said, you maybe want to rethink that. You probably don't want to do that. There's a reason why they're turned off. He goes, nah, it was just all remodeled. It's brand new. And he was proud of it. He wanted to, he knew that the buyer had a question mark in his mind. He wanted to know what was going on. So he turned them on. Okay, he turned them on. Everything was fine. They're down in the basement. So the home inspector starts to make his way upstairs. For some reason, everybody stayed down in the basement, or maybe they didn't go upstairs into the, and I actually think that it was on the third floor of this townhome where this was. I might be wrong about second floor. I forget. But the home inspector finally made his way up there. It took him a couple minutes to get up there, look at a couple things on the way up. When he got up, coming up the stairs, going into the upper level, he was hearing something. So he's, what is that? Starts making his way into the master suite. In the master suite, adjacent to it's like combined where there's the closet and uh, the bath, the master bath. He went in, he saw something in the closet that looked out of the ordinary. As soon as he stepped into the closet, he stepped into the room, went squish, squish. So realizing what was going on, he said, "What is that noise?" And he realized that inside the walls, there must have been loose pipes, and there were probably the PEX, the plastic pipes, and they were flopping around inside the walls with water shooting out of them. And so he starts yelling, "Shut it off, shut it off, shut those shut offs off." He's going, trying to get all the way down the basement. Um, Nobody shut off. He went down there. He finally shut them off. Long story short, went into the kitchen, which is right below the bathroom, and the water's coming out of the recessed lights and all over the cabinets. And oh my goodness, it was a disaster. All because somebody turned some things on that shouldn't have been turned on. This is why, as inspectors, we don't turn those types of things on. Normal controls, yes. Main shutoffs, disconnects, breakers, no. We're not going to turn those things on because usually they're off for a reason. And that's a good example of why. So what can a seller do? A seller can, yeah, somebody says, well, I definitely noted that. I mean, I've been out there and just little things like, look, we don't test smoke detectors. I'm not going to press the alarm. Number one, me walking up and pressing the alarm on the smoke detector um, doesn't really do anything because the alarm can go off, but the smoke detector, if it's more than 10 years old, there's a good chance it wouldn't even detect smoke in a fire. Now they age over time. Dust and debris gets in front of the sensor there, and they just don't work. But the alarm will still work every time you test it. So testing the alarm doesn't do anything. We don't test alarms. Well, we were on one inspection. I was on an inspection where they had a hardwired system in a house, and there was what looked to be a smoke alarm, and there wasn't a test button, but there was a little push button. You could push it in with a pen, and they wanted me to test it. No, I'm not going to do that. This is actually a hardwired system. It's got a monitoring system on it. That's not a good idea. Buyer's agent said, "Oh, I'll do it." He takes his pen out. 4 minutes later, we had fire trucks there. Yeah, it was a big disaster, right? So, no, we don't do that. So, what can a seller do? A seller can make sure everything's on, or if something isn't to be turned on, have it well labeled. And why is this important? Well, we don't want those kinds of problems. But the other thing is that remember, today is a day, inspection day, a day of transparency. We don't want the buyer to be thinking, well, why don't they have that turned on for us? Why are they not? Do they not want us to see something? Accessibility into places we're going to talk about. We need to get into places so we can inspect. If things can't be completely inspected, we got to put that in the report. That's a negative. It might cause an inconvenience for everybody. We might have to make a return trip. And if it's actually going to cost us an inspection slot to do it, we're going to have to charge a trip fee to do that. Now, we will always try, we always try to accommodate everybody on this. And if we can, if somebody's going to be by and we can get back in, if we need to get back, sometimes it happens. That's the reality of it. If you have a bank owned property and everything's shut off, yeah, okay, we got to deal with that stuff. But most of the time, the seller can do a good enough job going through, making sure everything's on, making sure everything's functional. And then if something can't be, we let everybody know ahead of time proactively. And so this saves time for everybody, and it prevents that buyer from having to say, hey, is there a reason they don't want me to test this out? The seller should advise let's say that there's a space that we shouldn't get into. Let's say you have a dog in a room and you can't do anything else with the dog. Dog's got to be there. You don't want us going in there, or cats to get out, whatever. Fine, but let's have a game plan going into it. That doesn't need to be revealed during the inspection, because if all of a sudden we can't get into the room, or we show up and there's a sign, "Don't go in here," what do you think the buyer's going to do? As an inspector, okay, I'll honor that. But from a buyer's perspective, they're immediately being distrustful. They're immediately starting to think, is there a reason they don't want me to go into that room? Is there a reason they've got this crawl space blocked off or didn't provide access to it? Is there a reason why they don't want us going into the attic? Is there a reason why this was shut off or that was shut off? And they, what don't they want me to see? We never, ever, ever want them to be asking those types of questions during inspection day. And the seller has such a huge role in making sure that doesn't happen by doing the things they need to do, making sure everything's on, providing accessibility to all of these places. That's such a big, big deal. Again, I don't want the buyer out there on inspection day feeling like they're not getting the transparency that they're deserving of. Excuse me. All this stuff should be agreed upon and managed ahead of time so everybody's on the same page. Good communication. The seller needs to do whatever they can do to transmit to the buyer that, hey, I want you to have full visibility, full transparency here. That needs to come across. Seller has a big role in that. They got to prepare the property. We need clear, unfettered, unrestricted access into attics, crawl spaces, electric panels, closets, the garage, the gates, the yard, furnaces, water heaters, mechanical systems, all of that stuff. I'll tell you my attic story, back early on. I want to always go above and beyond. So I want to do everything I can do. And when I was checking out the roof, I saw that there was some things that concerned me on the roof. And so, I wanted to figure out, how am I going to report on this? Is this just something that, the roof looked like it was nearing the end of its life cycle. So knowing that, not wanting to simply say, hey, it's near the end of its life cycle, you should probably replace this. I want to get into the attic space because that's going to confirm to me, A, there's either leaking and yes, it does need to be replaced, or B, it's not leaking. Even though it's the end of its life cycle, it's still performing and doing its job. And yes, they might need to have it on their radar at some point down the road. I need to know how to prioritize this. And so getting into the attic is the only way I'm going to be able to do this. So being the youthful inspector I was, and went up into the second floor, and I'm looking for the attic access, and here it is. One of those, I love these things, those little scuttle holes that are inside of a closet. And what's inside the closet? Did the homeowner give me all the access I need? No, the closet's full. The top shelf of the closet is completely packed with all kinds of personal effects, almost all the way up to the ceiling. There's no way in the world I can get my ladder up and get in this thing without having moving stuff. And so I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I really shouldn't move anything here, but I want to do the best job. And this was kind of out there, and I didn't know how we would get back to get a return visit. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and move this stuff out of the way. I'll get up there. I'll handle it, right? Put it on my back. I'm going to get this done. So that's what I did. And I start pulling all this stuff down, all the crap that was up there. And I grabbed this one box and I go to pull it down, and the box went, whoosh, it just like collapsed in my hand. And it was some kind of sewing kit, and junk went everywhere. These tiny little beads, and like, oh my goodness. And yeah, so I spent the next 45 minutes trying to go around, pick up all these beads, trying to get everything. And there was no way in the world that when I walked out of there, that place was going to be like it was when I walked in there. It just wasn't going to be. So that was a big fail on my part. I was able to get in the attic and do that, but not without, doing damage. So I need access. That means move all that stuff out of the way. If there's a scuttle hole, all those personal effects. Home inspector's got to get his ladder up in there, very tight space, got to climb up, can't have all this stuff in the way. That stuff needs to be moved ahead of time. You guys know that. The sellers know that. If I can't get to that, I'm going to have to say, hey, I don't have access there. I'm going to need to come back. I can't move personal property around the site. And what's that going to do? Again, that's going to make the buyer start to question. And we never, ever, ever want the buyer questioning or wondering, hey, did they do that on purpose? Do they not want me to see this? Is there something here somebody's trying to hide from me? They not want me to see something. We never, ever want them to ask that. We want them to feel like they have transparency and clarity, visibility. How about the dog? Do we want the dog? Let me tell you my dog story. So look at this guy. He's horrible. No, he's an adorable little guy. But I do have a dog story. I was over in Jersey, somewhere near Swedesboro, a newer home there. Big. It was really a big house, beautiful house, a lot of property. So a big, big backyard. And I pull up to the inspection. It was in the afternoon, and nobody's there. Nobody's home. Knock on the door. No answer. No cars there. I start walking around the outside. Not long after that, the buyer shows up, and the buyer starts walking with me. It's just me and the buyer. The buyer's agent was supposed to be there. The buyer's agent hadn't shown up, and nobody was home. So we were able to do the front, check out the roof, all that stuff, but the backyard was completely fenced in, huge backyard. And the only way to get into the backyard, there was a double gate to get in where you could drive a vehicle, but that had a lock on it, padlock on it. The only way to get in was to go through a gate, walk up on the deck, open up another gate, walk down the stairs and into the backyard. Well, in the backyard, in the center of the backyard, on a big metal spike, was a pit bull tied to a big chain, and big pit bull, scary. And so I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, how am I going to get into the backyard? I need to look under the deck. I need to look at the back of the house. There was a chimney back there. There was the air conditioning unit. A lot of stuff I needed to get eyes on to be able to do my inspection. And this pit bull was back here. Now, yes, he was on a chain, but I started looking at this and I started thinking, how's that chain? Does the chain look like it can reach me? And I started looking at the pattern and the grass in the yard, and I concluded that if I go in the yard, I don't think this dog's going to be able to reach me. Even if he wants a piece of me, I don't think he's going to be able to. Sorry about that. I don't think he's going to be able to, talking about dogs, I don't think he's going to be able to get to me. So I told the buyer, look, I'm going to get down the yard. You might want to stay here. So I went down in the yard and I'm walking down the yard and I'm looking at that pit bull. Pit bull's looking at me, didn't like me being there, but we're looking at each other and I'm thinking, okay, I think we got this. So I turned my head, I turned away and I started walking around to the back corner of the yard. Well, as soon as I turned my head and started walking, I started hearing boom, 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 boom. And I knew that the pit bull was starting to charge at me. So I turned around expecting to see it come to the end of its chain and kind of go, with the chain. Well, it got to where I could see the slack coming out of the chain. It got to the end of its chain and I didn't see that. All I heard was tink. And it was like, this thing is now at a gallop coming towards me. It's fight or flight, right? That's the reaction. I didn't think. I immediately started charging at the dog, trying to make myself look big, yelling at it, reprimanding at it, bad dog. And I don't know. The weirdest thing is that the dog looked at me and was like, what in the world? And it kind of came to a stop and is looking at me. Well, not quite sure. And I'm still yelling at it, reprimanding, and it didn't want anything to do with me. So the dog turns and looks and sees the buyer on the deck and just starts charging up towards the buyer. Well, the buyer grabs the gate, locks me in the backyard with the dog, and he takes off. So I'm in the backyard with this dog. Long story short, I was able to extract myself from there. We tussled a bit. Fortunately, I didn't get hurt and the dog didn't get hurt. So honestly, a bit of a miracle. I don't know how that actually happened, but that's the way it ended up. And but that could have been a lot worse. I mean, I could have got really hurt. The buyer could have got hurt. I could have defended myself and really hurt that dog. I was prepared to do that. So that could have really, really been ugly. And all because we didn't have a plan going in what we were doing. They thought they had a plan. They just assumed that everything would be fine, but that wasn't the case. And so inspectors, we can't assume that dogs are going to be friendly. We need to have a game plan. They really should be either in a cage or you're there with them or whatever. We need to have a game plan. And little cats, they're escape artists. We don't want, last thing in the world I want to do is go to somebody else's house and accidentally let one of their family members out and gets lost. No, we need to have a game plan. And is that a great user experience for the seller? If I lose one of their animals or something happens, how about the buyer? Did he have a great user experience? No, nobody had a great user experience there. We need to prepare the property. And the only person who can do that really is the seller. And you guys can walk them through that process. So when it comes to dealing with pets, we want to make sure that we know what we're doing. Take them away, take them to a doggy shelter, take them out of town, tie them up, but have a game plan for that. Tying the dog near the crawl space entrance really doesn't help anybody. So, if we are going to put a pet, like we talked about, in a room and lock the door, that's fine, but we need to have a game plan. The cats, I don't want to let somebody's cat out. That would be terrible, right? So let's ask the next question. Should the seller be present during the inspection? The seller. Now, I'm not talking about now, today, in the time of COVID, excuse me. I know people are working from home. What our experience has been for the most part is that people working from home have to work from home. They say, hey guys, go do your inspection, do what you got to do. I'm going to be here, but I'm going to be working. I'm going to be focused on this. I'm not going to bother you guys. And when you need to get in here, let me know. I'll move out and you can come in and do your inspection. And that's worked fantastically. I mean, that's just been no problems with that at all. We don't have any problems with that at all. So yeah, absolutely. What I'm talking about is the seller who intentionally stays home because they want to be there for the inspection. From an inspector's perspective, I honestly don't care. I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But from a buyer's perspective, I can tell you, because I've been on so many inspections where the buyer, comes up to me and goes, "Is it normal for them to be here? Is it normal for them to follow us around?" And sometimes they do that. There are those sellers that are worried that during inspection day, things are going to be found or things are going to be revealed, or they want to have an answer for anything that the inspector calls out. And so they might be offended by something the inspector says, or they might actually have comments about everything the inspector says. Is that a good user experience for the buyer? No, absolutely not. The buyer needs to be able to walk around and talk confidentially with the inspector, to ask questions that they have, to get educated on the home. And having the seller, I think it's a terrible idea to have the seller there. They may also downplay some things. I mean, this has been a real thing where I've seen this happen, where a seller knew something about what was going on with the house, specifically went out of their way to downplay it, only to have the buyer move in and then end up turn around and sell the seller for negligent misrepresentation, because the seller went way out of their way to downplay a specific issue. Now, a home inspection is a benefit to the seller in that a home inspection will help them not downplay issues. A home inspection should bring, accuracy and light to specific issues, eliminating their ability to downplay things. But like I said, we live in a very, very litigious society. And so, it's not uncommon at all for a buyer to move into a home and then turn around and go after the seller because they think that they were negligent about something or didn't disclose something, or maybe we're actively trying to cover something up. Excuse me. The seller can slow the inspection down by tagging along. I've had this literally where I'm pulling a cover off and I'm inspecting the furnace, checking this out, and literally not even aware that the seller's head's right here next to mine. I turn my head and they startle me because they're literally, what in the world are you doing here? They're just here. Like, you don't need to be here. Why are you here? This is the day this is your house. You can look at the furnace anytime you want to. You don't need to be looking over my shoulder. So the seller can make it difficult to speak with the buyer and to confidentially. I've actually had this happen more times than I can count, where I've actually had to tell the homeowner, the seller, hey guys, please give us some space. I want to talk with the client. I want them to be able to ask me some questions and conversate outside your hearing of this. And I don't have any problem doing that. I'm going to be very respectful when I do that. I'm not going to, be ignorant or rude. But the buyer needs to have that ability to be able to do that. And with the seller there, quite often a bad idea. So highly recommend the seller not be there if at all possible. Sandy's asking the question, do you believe in a seller's having a pre-listing home inspection? We're going to talk about that actually a little bit here, Sandy, but absolutely. I think if I'm a seller, if I'm somebody looking to sell my house, I'm absolutely doing a pre-listing inspection. Number one, I want to know what's going to come up on an inspection because I'm going to deal with it proactively. Everything we're talking about here is about being proactive. Pre-listing inspection is a homeowner being proactive to find out what's going to come up on an inspection report so they can deal with it in their time frame, on their budget, without it being used as a negotiating tool to renegotiate the deal in an extremely tight time frame, which is what happens if you just wait and react to a home inspection. So what we're seeing, I talk to agents all the time, and what agents are telling us is that, hey, listing agents, you'd be shocked at how many listing agents tell me all the time that, hey, I won't list a home unless the seller does a pre-listing inspection. Absolutely want that done. They don't want to wait to have to react to a home inspection to renegotiate the deal and deal with issues that they didn't even know existed. and on a really, really tight time frame, and have it held over their head, and as a negotiation tool to get to the settlement table. So absolutely believe in pre-listing inspections. We're going to go through some of the things a seller can do to prepare a house for it. In fact, we have a pre-listing checklist. So even if you don't do a pre-listing inspection, we're going to give you a checklist that you can provide to your sellers to just walk through. And I'm not going to, we'll talk about this in a minute, but it's just a checklist to be able to do some things to prepare. So what are some of the things that a seller might be there to do? Well, am I gonna pay attention to anything as a home inspector, to anything a seller might not have questions for them? Generally, no. I occasionally, like if the seller's walking out the door and I see looks like a pretty new roof, I might ask that, hey, when looks like a new roof, when did you have that put on? Just to get a date. But most of the time, I don't find the information that they want to share with me to be beneficial to me. I need to look at things and verify things for myself. I might ask if they know the age of the house, or if there was an addition put on. Hey, do you know when that addition was put on? Or anything? I might ask questions like that, but for the most part, I really don't need to get any information from the seller. And even the disclosure statement itself, as an inspector, I don't, I know a lot of inspectors will read them and whatnot, but I don't believe anything on them anyway. So I want to check it out for myself. I might look at it to see if they've indicated that they get termite treatments, or if they do indicate that they've had a problem in the back where they describe special things or something like that. Yes, maybe, but for the most part, no. So how can we avoid some of the common aggravations that can come up during a home inspection? Well, first off, I don't like to think as a home inspection as being aggravating at all. It shouldn't be. When done properly, when prepared for properly, when conducted properly, there should be nothing aggravating about a home inspection at all. It should be an extremely positive experience for everybody. The reason that the home inspection are aggravating is because somebody's not doing their job, is what the reality of it is. So how can we avoid these things? Well, delays can be avoided by asking the sellers to remove everything. Number one, from the sell side, we need to get to all of these areas. We need to get everywhere where we need to have access. And what do we say? Attics, crawl spaces, basement areas, electric panels, get to the mechanical systems, all of that stuff. Areas that are blocked off or sealed, they just leave those questions. That buyer's going, wow, what's under there? Do they not want me to see something? Did they block it off on purpose? Or even if they just said what they it looks like that it's been sealed for years. Did they never go under there? Don't they do any maintenance? Did they, all these negative things that come up as a result of this? We don't want, and from the sell side, you need to think through all this, and our pre-listing inspection kind of checklist kind of helps you out with that. Think through all the things that could be negative aspects to an inspection, and those are things proactively you can address with the seller. So getting access to all these areas is huge. Elmer is saying, what's the cost of a home inspection? Does it depend on the size of the home? It does, Elmer. Our home inspections are competitively priced. We're not the cheapest guy on the block. We're not the most expensive guy on the block. Yes, we as far as the price of a home inspection, we're going to price it primarily based on two things: the age of the house and the size of the house. The bigger the house, the more costly the inspection. And whether or not it is a so like a 1,000 square foot condo where there's no roof and whatnot, yeah, it's going to be relatively inexpensive compared to all the ones ballpark. You're looking at probably a $325 inspection. Compare that to say a 2,000 square foot single home, built 30 years ago. You're probably 375 to 395 and upwards. We just looked at a house yesterday. I was helping one of my client services rep with a 10,000 square foot home. That home inspections probably going to start in around $700 and go up from there. So it just all depends. So yep. So Robin asked, are we checking the appliances? Absolutely. We're going to check out the appliances. We're going to test them, make sure they're functional, and we're looking for any materially defective condition with the appliances as well. So what are some other things that the seller can do to make this thing go smoothly? Well, this is where we're talking about that checklist that we're going to provide you guys. You guys, you do this business, you're on inspections all the time. You respond to inspections all the time. What are the most commonly things found? You know them. Double taps, missing junction box cover, poor foundation graining, downspout issues. Just other basic. You can literally, knowing what you could take 15 minutes and do your own inspection, taking 15 minutes to do it, and can probably come up with a list of 10 things that a seller needs to do before they list the house to take care of it. Simple things, and they're things that aren't going to be that expensive. How long does it take? And a big deal, ask the seller to address these things before the inspection. Again, not to make my job easier. I still have to look and check everything out. That's not going to change. But think about this. If you go through and you address all these things, and now there are 10, 12, 15, maybe 20 things that I don't have to put into my report's going to be that much less long. It's going to be shorter by that much. Isn't that a benefit to everybody involved? Isn't that a benefit to the buyer? Buyer's going to go, wow, this is a really well-maintained home. Not much came up on the report. Isn't this a benefit to the seller? Even if they don't do a pre-listing inspection where they go through the whole thing, just walking through, addressing all of these most commonly things, that's going to be that much less. When I do an inspection on a poorly maintained home, my list of things is long. Now, if you total all those things up, it might not total up to be a lot, but it still kind of freaks out buyers that there are that many things on the list. And so, it just makes everything go better, make everything go more smoothly. Things like cleaning the gutters out. How many times do I go to a home and have to call out gutters that are clogged with stuff, that are overflowing, overshooting the gutter? The rain gutters are one of the most important things. The roof and the rain gutters, managing the water coming off the structure is probably the top of the list. I always say the first commandment of every structure is thou shalt not leak. We want to make sure that we're managing that water coming off the structure extremely well. So having the gutters clean, making sure everything's functional and free flowing, huge, and it's so simple to do. It doesn't require that much effort, to make that happen. How about this? If I walk into the garage and you got your firewood piled up in your garage, now all of a sudden I have to put that in my report that you're storing wood in the home. It creates a path for wood destroying insects and all these negative things that I got to put into that report. You could be bringing termites into them, all that stuff. Now I have to report on that. If somebody just took the time to get that stuff out of there before I even showed up, it's never going to go in the report. Think of all those negative things that I now do not have to put into the report. That's just better for everybody. How about, this guy here? It's a junction box cover. Somebody did their own electric work in the basement. That's fine. That's not necessarily a problem. But now this is just one more thing. It's one more line item in the report, in the summary, another action item that needs to be addressed. And literally, it literally takes 10 seconds to put the plate cover on here, and the plate cover costs $1. So the amount of effort required to not have this go on the list, it's unbelievably, inexpensive. So, it's just one more thing. And there are things that, you can get your sellers to do. You can walk through. Like I said, we're going to provide you with a checklist to walk through and do this kind of thing. So, look at the grading here. You can see the level on the ground. You got a negative grade. How many times is negative grade called out on a home inspection? And this actually happens more often than not on newer homes where the grading, you can see this is a newer home where it's just settled out over the first couple of years. And, 10 years later, you've got negative grade all around the home, routing all the water that comes off the structure right to the foundation and wants to find its way down below the basement slab. So it's a simple one. That's an easy one to recommend that they fix. And it's just one more thing that's not going to go on the report. The other thing I want to say, guys, is when you're making these recommendations and you're doing them, document it. Get photo documentation showing, yes, we had a pre-listing inspection, or we did kind of a pre-listing checklist thing. We walked around and we found this, this, and this, and we corrected this, this, and this. And here's pictures of us getting it fixed, the progress of it being fixed, whatever it is. Do you know how good that makes a buyer feel when they're coming in, knowing that you cared enough about the home that they're purchasing to walk through and address these things and get them done properly? that's a huge plus, a big gold star for the seller in the buyer's eyes. They're going to feel that much better. Remember, the seller of this home has a product that they're selling to somebody else, and you want to do everything you can as the seller of that product to make them feel good about that. And so, that's huge. I'm with the buyers all the time. Well, it doesn't happen that often, but if somebody's done some remediation work, for example, and I come out to do the inspection, I said, hey, by the way, this was broken. They fixed it. Here's the documentation. Here's the invoice, the proposal, the invoice. Here's photos of it. And I'm looking through and I'm going, oh yeah, no, this was broken before. They did a fantastic job of putting this together. This is awesome. This is great. Yeah, this real makes me feel real good to see this. I love to be able to say that. And I can say that when I have that documentation. So big deal, something to be aware of when you guys, that kind of stuff happens. How about that deck out back? If you know what I do, I'm going to walk along, I'm going to grab it like this. I'm going to check the spindles, make sure they're not loose. The seller's agent can do that. The seller can do that. You can walk with them doing that. How simple is it to fix that? Again, these are just things to get out of those. It's not uncommon for us to actually have, 30, 40, 50, 60 line items on a summary of things that need to be fixed. And usually half of them, if not more than half of them, were so simple and obvious and they needed to be addressed, and they could have been addressed ahead of time. And now what's the buyer, this buyer's going, what are they doing? Okay, they're going this, and this is going to be, and whenever they're putting that budget together, they're getting their pen out there, and they're getting the budget, and they're putting it all down there. You better believe that they're always going the highest potential price, the high, where the seller wants the lowest price all the time to fix these things, right? Well, yeah. And so we can avoid that kind of stuff, and we can avoid, remember we said before, most deals fall apart. You get the buyer freak out syndrome. Most deals fall apart because people can't come together and agree on how to move forward. They get contentious. They get egos get involved. The less points of contention that we can introduce on the day of inspection, the better. That's what we're trying to say. How about the report? Buyer's agents, you guys have your, get the report back. You go over it with the client. Do that. Go over it with the client, review it with them. If you have questions, come back to the inspector, ask questions, make sure they read it and understand it. I can tell you, as the guy that deals with, somebody moves into a home and they think that we missed something, I cannot tell. I'm without question, 99% of the time we called it out in the report, and they just missed it. I mean, I don't know how they missed it. They just miss it. I had it just happen recently where we called something out, and then what happens is they get into the home and they start to realize that they have a problem, and then they come back and say, well, how come you didn't call this out? We did. And in fact, not only did we call it out, we said you really should have this fully evaluated. Further evaluation is needed to see if there's an underlying condition, and people, they just don't do it because they didn't even read the report. I encourage you to get your clients to read the report. Don't assume that things that are mentioned are major, even of importance to the buyer. So never assume that just because you're reading something a certain way and you think that's important, that's not important. That's not necessarily the way they're looking at it. I've actually had clients. This actually happened. I was with a client and we had a basement that was in a state of catastrophic failure. The basement wall was being pushed in, significant displacement. It was, catastrophic. That's what a structural engineer would term it as. Can it be fixed? Absolutely. And that's what I was explaining it to them. And I went through my whole thing, and it's just like they didn't even pay attention to me. All they could fixate on was, man, I don't like the pink color on the paint in here. I'm just telling them that there's a significant issue that needs to be addressed, and I want them to understand what needs to be done here. And all they care about is the pink paint. So never assume that you have that people are thinking it the same way that you're thinking about these things. So Sandy's asking, does your report differentiate between major defects, safety issues, and maintenance? Yeah, absolutely. That's the way we categorize things. Our new report's going to basically be the same, slightly different, but yes. So we're going to categorize them as items of priority and then maintenance, monitor and maintenance items, and then other issues that we want to bring to their attention. But yeah, absolutely. So we absolutely prioritize things so that people have an understanding of that. We also include estimates in our report to give you an idea of a range of cost to repair or remediate, just to get you in the ballpark. Is this a $5 problem, $50 problem, or $5,000 problem? Just so that you can understand that. And just because this is what I was talking about. Let's say nobody did a pre-listing inspection, nobody did a pre-listing checklist. They just went and they're going to react to whatever's in the report. The report's long. Just because the report has a lot of things in it that need to be addressed or we wanted to bring to the attention of the buyer, that doesn't mean cumulatively there's a lot of major issues. There could be just a lot of small picayune stuff. When you total it all together, it doesn't even add up to a couple $1,000s. It doesn't mean because there's a lot of things that there's going to be big dollars involved or that there are even major things. Just remember that the way you think, the way you handle yourself, how you react to this absolutely will influence the buyer. So through this whole process, you have to be calm, you have to be confident. Even if you've never run across this before, and there is, some kind of catastrophic failure of the foundation wall that you guys didn't see initially, the way you've approached that is, hey, and I do it the same way. If it can be built, it can be fixed. There is a path forward, and that's got to be your perspective. That's got to be what you project for the buyer to see that you're confident in the solution and a path forward here. Now, they may still say, hey, this isn't for me, but at least you're not shooting yourself in the foot by going, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. I've never seen anything this bad ever. Oh my goodness. Well, if you look like that, they're going to think the same thing. So how you react will influence them. Some things an inspector might ask for. I'm not going to pay. Obviously, we're going to ask for the details, a signed agreement, payment, whatnot. But the big things here for you guys, they're going to ask for access to the property. They want to know that, hey, are all the utilities on? And if there are pets, what are we doing with those pets? That's pretty much it. It's not a lot that we're going to require going into the inspection. I mean, we just need to be able to have free, unfettered access to every area we need so that we can do a proper inspection for our clients. Remember, we have a very, very limited time frame in which to do the inspection. We're trying to look at a whole lot of stuff, and a lot of these things. Remember what I talked about this. We're looking to see not only the individual things, but also the systematic integration of these things. A lot of times, if we have a problem, with the outside building envelope, it's telegraphing inside and might even go. A lot of problems are interconnected. And so it's really, really important if we're going to be able to get an accurate understanding of what's going on that we have access to all of these places. So super important. So just some FAQ. This is going to kind of be a quick review, guys. So um, home inspectors, we don't prescribe how something, we don't develop a prescription for action in terms of your basic home inspection. We do that actually with a stucco inspection or even other things that are more specialized. But in terms of the basic home inspection, we're not going to describe step by step how to fix something. It's not going to be a repair manual. But what we're going to do is we're going to get you down that path towards a solution, and we're going to explain to you what should the end result look like. What should this, when everything is all done and done properly, this is what it should be. And so, we should know that repairs, they definitely, if you've ever been involved in a negotiation and you went out and got prices from contractors, the prices can be really out of whack. I mean, I usually wait till the end of the class to tell you guys to feel free to use this as a resource. To give you an example of that, I had an agent that took our stucco class, and I told him that, hey guys, anytime you get into something, you need a third party, unbiased opinion, or just an opinion on something, don't hesitate, reach out, ask. We're here, we're available to you. Never have to have done a deal together or ever do a deal together. We'd like to be on your list of vendors, but we're here. And so I had an agent take me up on that, and she's called me up and she says, look, I took your class. I've never done an inspection with you guys, and I'm involved. I have a buyer. They actually hired a different company to do a stucco inspection. And I took that report and I gave it to contractors. I gave it out to 3 contractors. I've got 2 prices back. One price is at $8,500. The other one's at $65,000. And I don't have a clue what I'm supposed to do with this. This is what we're talking about here. Repairs, well, I mean, wildly different sometimes in terms of the prices and even how we should go about and what methodology we should be using to implement these repairs. And so with that particular case, I said, well, why don't you send me the report? I'll review it. I'll just give you my opinion based on what I see. And so my opinion was, first, number one, whoever did that inspection, they did a good job doing the inspection. What they did not do a good job with was developing a prescription for action. All they did was take the data points, put them in there, and then just left them to whoever to interpret them. And that's what the contractors did. They got the report. One contractor said, hey, I can just do this, this, and this to fix it. The other contractor said, I got to rip the whole thing off and redo it. And so I gave her my opinion. I looked at it, and basically pretty much all the stucco was in really good shape, good low moisture readings, solid substrate, with the exception of two spots in two relatively small areas, each side of the front door, and about total about 90 square feet of stucco needed to be removed and replaced, repairs made, and they needed to retrofit some kick-out flashing and do a comprehensive sealant application. So I put together a list of what I thought should be done, gave her an estimate. My estimate was right around $88,000 to $9,000, which was right in line with what the lower estimate was. And so she was able to move forward with that. But this is what we're talking about. Numbers can be all over the place, and so that the buyers need to be prepared for that. It's a good idea to have that conversation ahead of time. I always tell people, hey, when you get my report back, look at my report. You're going to see everything. I give you a very detailed report, but don't ask, and this is my advice to the buyers, don't ask the sellers to fix everything on my report. Go through the report, come back, ask me questions, but figure out which are the things that you can handle. If you just ask them for everything, you're just going to tick them off and it's going to be combative. If you pick your battles, if you just go through and, hey, I want them to address this, 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 and this, and this, bigger ticket items, and let them know, I'll take care of this. Don't worry about this, this, and this. I'll take care of that. That goes a long way in having a very friendly, amicable negotiation. And they're much more likely to give you what you want if you're letting them know that so this is my advice when I talk with them. So home inspectors know they can't do repairs. We talked about that. Home inspectors are not allowed to do repairs on places that they have inspected for a period of 1 year after they've inspected it. Hal says, the best thing I've found for showing a house with pets, dogs and cats, is to keep a dog leash in your car. Excitedly ask, go for a walk, and then suddenly you're the dog's best friend. That's great advice, Hal. As an inspector, I can't do that because I got to be the one doing the inspection. But agents, yeah, that's something that you might want to consider. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you are the dog's best friend when you do that. So that's some good advice. So will a home inspector recommend whether or not to purchase a property? We get asked this all the time. Hey, would you buy this house? Hey, if your mom was looking at this house, would you let your mom buy this house, or would you let your family move in here? I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't even generally know what you offered for the house, what the house is sold for, what they were asking, what the comps are. And I don't research that. I don't know. I pay no attention to that whatsoever. I am not an appraiser. I'm not looking to appraise the house. I don't know. And so you have that. And then also, I just don't know what your situation is. I don't know what your family situation is, your income situation is. I don't know what your capability in maintaining a home is. So many things I don't know about. So I can't make that recommendation. I know, what I generally tell people is that, hey, I inspected the home. I saw what I saw, what was revealed during the inspection. I'm going to observe and report on that. And there wasn't anything here that scared me. I didn't see anything that scared me. Your biggest ticket item was blah, blah, blah. And I know exactly how that needs to be handled. So nothing scary here at all. So I wouldn't have any problem moving forward just based on that information. But ultimately, you guys need to figure out what's best for you. That's generally how I answer that question. So as a home inspection, a guarantee, and we talked about this earlier, is it a guarantee that, if you get a home inspection, nothing's going to be wrong when you move into that home? Absolutely not. No. And so I'll read a little bit of this boilerplate stuff for you. It's not intended to be technically exhaustive. There's no implication whatsoever that everything was inspected or that every defect was discovered. I can guarantee you that it wasn't. Not everything was inspected, and I guarantee you there are still materially defective conditions in that house that are not in my report, simply because my report it's limited. visual only, limited. I can only report on what I see, and I'm only there for a relatively short amount of time. Components that aren't readily accessible during the inspection are excluded from the scope of the inspection. The report is not a guarantee, a warranty of against present or future adequacy of everything. Nothing, you move in, you might have some problems. That's what we're saying. It's not a guarantee that you won't. Hopefully, we've seen as much as we can see, and you won't. The vast majority of the time, you move in and you aren't going to have problems. Or if there are, you already knew what they were. But the report isn't, guaranteeing any type of warranty. It's not an insurance policy. We are not a warranty service. I get agents reach out to, hey, my so and so had an issue when they moved into their house. Do you provide a warranty? We used to provide what was called the 90-day warranty. I know a lot of inspectors provide that. We stopped doing that. And the reason we stopped doing that, because it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's full. Number one, it's not 90 days from the day you move into the home. It's 90 days from the date of the inspection. So you have that. Um, and then it's got so many loopholes for them to get out of paying on anything. It's worthless. We pay next to nothing to provide that. It's a couple dollars per inspection. It's completely worthless. So we don't provide it. I recommend that you have your clients purchase a home warranty and pay just some, significant amount. You get a good home warranty, you're going to pay $500-600 for a home warranty, or maybe even more. That's a warranty that's worth something. Oh, pop quiz, guys. We are at the end of the class. What do you think is the most asked question of a home inspector? Well, it's, did my inspection pass? Well, we don't pass or fail homes. No. We observe and we observe, we report, we do that with humility. There is no pass or fail. I know that there's an inspector over in New Jersey. He'll actually, after he does a home inspection, by the way, he's known as the deal killer. He'll go and do an inspection for you, and he will actually do you the favor of rating the home when he's done. On a scale of 1 to 10, there was quite a few things wrong. I'm going to give this one a 3.5. No, absolutely not. We don't do that. We observe, we report, we do it with humility. It's a privilege to be able to do what we do. There is no pass or fail. That's it. We just bring to light what's actually there, and that's it, guys. That's it, guys. We are at the end of the class. I appreciate your time being with us. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them up there. Like I had mentioned before, don't hesitate to use us as a resource. We're available to you guys anytime you need us. Ask questions. I offer third-party opinions on stuff all the time. I mean, I get agents send me reports and, ask for comments and observations or whatever. Happy to do it. It's just to be available to resource is a privilege. So, guys, if you don't have any questions, I'm going to ask Patty to pop back on here and tell you guys how you're going to get your CE credits and how about upcoming classes that we have. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for the great comments. And I hope you guys get out today. It's beautiful out there. We got some rain coming, so get outside, enjoy this afternoon. All right. So I look forward to seeing you in upcoming classes, guys. Patty, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, that's great. Did you see Charlita's comment?
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
She's so funny. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed you being here. We always enjoy these courses with you. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody will, like I said before we started, everybody will receive an email from me either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Hold on to that. It'll have my contact information in it. If you do not receive your certificate within 48 hours, let me know and I'll get it over to you right away. Also, we do have some fun classes coming up next week. Anybody who is scheduled for Tuesday, if you do not get like the bombardment that I sent out yesterday, letting you know that Tuesday is postponed until a further date, please know Tuesday the 13th, that course at 1 p.m. is postponed. We're not going to be presenting that one, but Wednesday the 14th and Thursday the 15th are are perfectly fine on schedule. We have residential structural inspections for those of you who weren't able to sign up for that course title because it had filled up so quickly. That's back on the schedule on the 14th. And then on the 15th, we have our stucco 101. Pete is actually the author of this course. We used to present this one when we were out there doing the having two agencies to present those CE courses. And it was actually started on our Lunch and Learn series years ago. And then we got it approved in Pennsylvania for credits. Well, Pennsylvania and Delaware, but Delaware we can't do virtually yet. So, and then I will also I'll send you a link for the whole entire schedule for the entire month of April. So, because I have a lot of fun things coming up. Thank you so much again for being here. We really enjoy our time with you. Pete never puts in that last poll that I love, my favorite. Can you put that up real quick?
Sure.
Just for fun.
Is that the right one?
That's it. I cracked myself up. You guys are funny. So just wanted to end it on a ha ha. So anyway, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Please be safe and stay well. Thank you for joining us. Dan, I do need you to hang on here for a minute. So just hang with me for a minute and everybody else can log off if they like. And Dan, I'm just going to put a picture of the bay up so you don't have to look at my ugly mug for the next couple minutes. And enjoy your day, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.